A boy, Sebastian, with ragged, torn clothes covered in mud and dust, was bathed in the glare of street lamps. His breathing was so shallow, his chest barely moving up and down, that most would think that he was dead. There was no movement in the alley except the faint twitches of Sebastian's body, and there were no sounds except the whimpers that escaped him. The streets, illuminated with the yellow shine of the street lamps, mixed with the silver glow of moonlight, would have painted a truly beautiful picture if not for the pitiful surroundings. Towering red brick walls with faint cracks lining the edges, green overflowing dumpsters and black trash bags, and the comforting smell of homeless man piss and cat shit. The silence that filled the place was broken by a faint curse. Sebastian stirred where he lay and opened his eyes, groggily getting up on one knee. His face was malnourished, cheeks sunken, eyes hollow. His body was frail, so frail that he looked like the evening wind could blow him away. He had deep dark circles under his eyes, a clear indication of sleep deprivation. He looked less like a human and more like a zombie. Sebastian let out a long, humorless laugh. Guess today's the day I end it. Looks like I wasn't able to accomplish anything in this damn life. Sebastian had been thinking about killing himself for a very long time, but never had the guts to go through with it. The world had abandoned him at a young age, and in return, he was about to abandon the world. Shakily standing on both legs, Sebastian started limping towards the end of the alley and into the main street. What greeted him was scorn from the walking pedestrians, children pointing at him like he was an exotic zoo animal, and open disgust from people who were avoiding him like the plague. They might have been right. Maybe he was a cause of misfortune. After all, his parents had killed themselves. His cousins acted like he didn't exist. His aunt and uncle stole the money his parents had left for him. And even his cat died. If he wasn't cursed, then maybe he was just worthless. Maybe no one wanted to live because of who he was. Who am I kidding? Those bastards were probably just jealous of my beautiful face. On the way to his destination, Sebastian started laughing like a maniac after elbowing a man who was muttering something about him being a disgraceful beggar. Serves you right, you bitch, ha 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 ha. Just a few blocks ahead, Sebastian could see a beautiful bridge made of red steel, lined with golden lanterns that glowed softly, their light reflecting on the still lake water below. Such a beautiful place to end it all. The saddest part was that he felt nothing while thinking about ending his own life. As he was making his way towards the golden bridge, a single useless thought was slowly consuming him from the inside. The last words his mother had told him before they had jumped from this exact bridge. "My son, we don't want to leave you, but death has chosen its successor." His mother had said this with tears streaming down her face. Back then, I hadn't understood what she was talking about. I still don't. But maybe it was all an empty excuse to leave me. Walking for a few more minutes in the comforting silence of emptiness, Sebastian finally arrived at the center of the bridge. He climbed the safety railing and peered down. The lake mirrored his pale figure. He took one last look at the world that had forsaken him, and then he jumped. Just before hitting the lake's surface, the water bent like molten glass and shattered. What was his last thought before everything went black? Sebastian was scared of death even though he wanted to die. After all, at the end of the day, he was still a human, and like any other human, he felt fear. Because of this, when he jumped, he had expected death to be cold, final, and chillingly terrifying. But death was not like anything he had expected. Death was warm, like a mother's embrace, not cruel. It was impartial and inevitable. This is peaceful. I should have done this a long time ago. Looking around, Sebastian could see nothing but black every direction. No sound, no light, just a lack of everything. Even Sebastian was swallowed by the endless void of nothingness. Why am I able to still think? I thought I was supposed to just vanish. Before Sebastian could think more about his weird situation, he felt the void stir, and he could hear the screeching sound of glass cutting glass. The sound started getting louder and louder, and polished black marble started forming below him. In sync with the sound, the black sky overhead started turning into a depressing shade of gray, and finally, white walls replaced the only visible patch of void left. The room was lit by giant, black chandeliers, and the walls were lined with torches burning with blue fire. The bizarre place was completely devoid of furniture except for a giant statue of a crying woman. The statue was so beautiful that it looked almost godly. For a moment, Sebastian almost compared the statue's beauty to his own. While it may be beautiful, I'm definitely better. What is all of this? Now I'm completely sure that I didn't die. First, the river shattering like glass. Then I didn't vanish, and now this. Something is definitely wrong. The words echoed through Sebastian's mind, and he started to feel chills down his spine. Sebastian started to move towards the statue, his every step cautious. He had an instinctual desire to kneel in front of the statue. Stopping in front of the statue, Sebastian placed his hand on the head of the statue, and he immediately regretted it. His hand burst into a torrent of fire, burning his skin, muscle, and bone. The flames started changing color, from red to orange, until finally they settled on an unnerving blue. The air was starting to fill up with the stench of burned flesh and the sound of boiling water. Ah! Sebastian's scream tore through the silence, terrified and endless. Within the span of a few seconds, his body crumbled away, fingers, arms, legs. All of it turned into ash. Sebastian's eyes snapped open. Pain flooded his senses. The lingering sensation of being burned alive was still alive in his mind. Before he could even think, a black window flickered into existence right before his eyes. Status: Name: Sebastian Necros. Age: 17. Rank: F0 Precinct. Affinity: Life, Death, Soul Flames. Bloodline: Locked. Attributes: Strength: F+. Agility: F+. Endurance: F-. Perception: F. Willpower: F+. Luck: Unpredictable. Titles: Son of Death, Apostle of Life. Anomaly: What the fuck? I couldn't make sense of what was happening. A few seconds ago, I had been on fire. Now I was sitting on a bed with a status window, something that looked like it was ripped straight from a game, hovering in front of me. Is this a joke? Some kind of bad fever dream? Another window shimmered into existence, this one carrying words that froze me in place. It was as if time stopped, just to honor the weight of the words. The goddess of life and death has chosen you to represent her and humanity in the celestial battlefield. I swear I've heard about this celestial battlefield before. I just don't remember. Celestial battlefield. Celestial battlefield. I searched my memory until something clicked, and what I found wasn't good. Fuck, I was loud enough to wake up the neighbors, if I even had any. I really do have the worst luck. I got reincarnated, but got thrown into a world where everyone wants to kill each other. Back when I was around 10, and my despicable parents were still alive, there was a book they read to me as a bedtime story. You guessed it right. That's where I read about the celestial arena. Anyway, if it were any other god, I might have shed a single tear of joy. But the goddess of life and death, that was the worst case scenario. To get why, you first need to understand what the celestial battlefield was. The 15 gods who ruled the universe had decided to make all 6 sentient races fight a divine war against each other to determine which race would sit on top of the world. Each race had 3 patron gods. The human race had the god of storms, the goddess of light, and the god of survival. The elves had the goddess of nature, the god of mana, and the god of prosperity. The dwarves had the god of technology, the god of metal, and the goddess of innovation. The demons had the god of war, the goddess of darkness, and the goddess of curses. The vampires had the goddess of blood, the god of the night, and the goddess of magic. Beastmen had the god of the hunt, the goddess of the moon, and the goddess of lust. I said 15, but really there are a total of 16. But the goddess of life and death doesn't count. After all, she isn't a paltry god. She's a cardinal, a being born at the beginning of the universe. She chose 15 mortals and made them gods to serve their respective races. But those stupid gods had a different idea. They made their races fight each other in a millennium-long war. Mortals hate her because we're stupid enough to blame her for all our misery. The gods hate her because they're terrified of her. And me, well, now she's decided I'm her champion. Lucky me. She never interfered in others' business. So if the other races and their patrons found out she had finally chosen an apostle, all hell would break loose, and I would be the unlucky bastard stuck in the middle of all of it. Still, out of trillions of souls, she picked me. Guess that makes me pretty damn special. I was still staring at the damn status screen, half expecting to be set on fire again. Instead, another glowing window flickered beside me. 'Cause nothing says trouble better than some glowing shit. Initializing. System creation initiated. Downloading memories. System activated. Hello, Sebastian. A voice rang in my head, androgynous, calm, and smug. Yeah, it was smug. A system. Maybe my luck isn't as bad as I think. So what are you supposed to be, my fairy godmother? I am you. Or rather a refined, superior, more handsome version of you. I was born with the sole purpose of serving you. Handsome. You don't even have a body. I let out a laugh. I haven't even been in this world for more than an hour, and the universe decided that me, the paragon of perfection, needed a babysitter. What a joke. Sebastian, if only I could tell you that the universe decided it needed protection from you. The system ignored me. Sebastian, do you want me to upload the memories of the body you now inhabit? You can do that. Sebastian, my purpose is to serve you. I can do anything with your body, as long as you allow it. That sounded wrong. System, are you a pervert? Permission granted. Sure, do it. There will be small side effects that may include nausea, slight pain, and a temporary existential crisis. Permission granted. What an annoying system. System, are you trying to piss me off? Permission confirmed. Initiating upload. The moment the words reached my skull, all hell broke loose. I didn't even have time to scream before my vision extinguished. Flashes of light. Faces I hadn't seen before today. Tears I never shed. Emotions I never felt. They slammed into me, one after the other, too fast, too real. The memories weren't just shown to me. They were forced into me, like someone was tracing every nerve in my brain with 1,000 rusted knives. I dropped to the floor, squeezing my head, thrashing as foam came out of my mouth. Ah, the scream tore out of me before I could stop it, but it didn't even touch the surface of the pain I was feeling. My eyes were wet as tears fell freely, and my brain felt like the sun. It wasn't just memories, there were all the emotions too. The system's voice echoed in the back of my mind. It was cheerful, as if he was happy seeing me suffer. Upload at 12 Precinct. Please endure. 12. I gasped, choking on the air. What the foo? Another wave of pain slammed into me before I could finish, and for a second, the world went black. Upload at 99 Precinct. The pain had long since shattered my sense of self. It was no longer just physical. It was as if my soul had been torn in half, one half set on fire, the other decorated with glass. Every thought, every memory, every breath I took was bringing me closer to the edge of madness. I wasn't Sebastian Vale. I wasn't Sebastian Necros. I wasn't anything. For a single horrifying moment, I was nothing but raw consciousness. And then, upload complete. Silence. I collapsed, twitching faintly, my body heaving like a broken machine trying to restart. Good job, host, you survived. The system's cheerful voice cut through the silence, like a blade cutting butter. You bastard. I was on my knees, trying to force air into my lungs. You said it would hurt just a little. That was your first lesson, Sebastian. Never trust anyone. You really are a fucking bastard. I coughed, dragging myself upright, my body still unstable from the aftermath. I wanted nothing more than to kick that system in the ass, but since he didn't have one, I'd do the next best thing, hurt his ego. Despite all the pain that almost fried my brain, a grin still tugged at my lips. You know what? You're no longer system from now on. I'm gonna call you bastard. HMPH. It's better than the names you gave yourself. Dark, destroying, destroyer. How the hell do you know about that? I stammered, sweat beading at my forehead. Bastard didn't answer. He just laughed at me. It wasn't even a laugh, more like a smug hum that said he knew everything about me. That's my dark history, I hissed, pointing a finger at the air. We don't talk about it. Oh, we're definitely talking about it. I groaned, burying his face in his hands. I swear, I'd rather burn alive again. Bastard spoke again. Now that I've thoroughly embarrassed you, maybe you'd like to look at your status properly. I scowled. I already saw it. Oh, pretty boy, you saw the words, sure. But did you understand them? The mockery in his voice made me want to jump off a bridge once more. But curiosity got the better of me. Fine, I murmured. Show me. Status. Name, Sebastian Necros. Age, 17. Rank, F0 Precinct. Affinity, life, death, soul flames. Bloodline, locked. Attributes. Strength, F+. Agility, F+. Endurance, F-. Perception, F. Willpower, F+. Luck, unpredictable. Titles, Son of Death, Apostle of Life. Anomaly. I gave a dramatic mocking bow. All-knowing bastard, would you bestow me with your knowledge? Yes, this all-knowing, divine, devastatingly handsome system will grace you with its wisdom. Most of this even a toddler would know. But since you're dumber than a toddler, I'll explain. Strength is the amount of physical power you have. How much you can lift. How badly you break someone's balls. It depends on your strength. Agility is how fast you are, your reflex speed, and the difference between life and death. Endurance is how tough your body is, how long you last before your body betrays you. Perception is awareness, how sharp your senses are, how fast your mind can process things, and how well you can control mana. The others were pretty obvious, but willpower is different. Willpower is the measure of how much of your will you can pour into your attacks and defense, how easily you can control it. At a high enough level, willpower is often the difference between life and death. And finally, luck. It's fate's blessing, but since you're an anomaly, fate can't perceive you, which means no blessing, no curse, just chaos. I rubbed my temples, so basically, I'm weak, slow, and luck hates me. Correct. In other words, you're perfectly qualified to die. Wow, thanks, bastard. You're really motivational. Don't thank me yet. You're about to get a headache. I threw my hands in the air. What's that supposed to mean? Are you sick, bastard? Can you even catch anything? I can't, but you're about to experience it firsthand. It's okay. I'll get you your medicine after I take a look around. Bastard didn't respond. I glanced around, taking in my surroundings. The floor was a beautiful white marble, so polished I could see my reflection in it. The walls were thick panels of glass that stretched from floor to ceiling. I wasn't in some broken hut. This was a penthouse with a view that in my past life I could only imagine. My memories, I had inherited, whispered the reason for my extravagant lifestyle. Sebastian's sister, my sister, was the cause of all this luxury. Electra Necros, an older sister, a prodigy, a genius. She'd been a struggling commoner like most others, but her awakening at 17 had changed everything. Our lives, our future, even this penthouse. Sister, the words sounded weird in my mouth, like I was speaking in another language. Yet despite this, the emotions I felt for her were impossible to ignore. I had never felt emotions like this for anyone, not even for the people who'd called themselves my parents in my past life. It was such a perfect moment, but bastard had to ruin it. You're blushing, Sebastian, so adorable. I'm not. Shut up. I don't even know her. She's a stranger. Oh, but you do. You know her favorite foods, the way she used to work 12-hour days just to feed you, the way she hummed songs to you when you were sick. That wasn't me. These memories, they aren't mine. I spent my teenage years in a trash-filled alley, not as a loved little brother. Keep telling yourself that. The sooner you accept your new reality, the better. Don't delude yourself. I clenched my teeth. These memories and emotions weren't mine. They belonged to the boy whose body I had stolen. But they were inside me now, like they had belonged here, as if they had always been here. I now had a sister, a family, a life worth something. For the first time in 17 years, I felt fear, not because of death, but because the thought of losing my sister scared me. The feeling of losing someone was not new to me, but I didn't want to feel it again. And then, the door of the room creaked open. Sebastian. The voice was soft, careful, but it struck me harder than any weapon. I didn't need to look to know who it was. It was her, my sister. Leaning against the door was a beautiful woman with long black hair and bewitching golden eyes that seemed to glow in the dim moonlight. I had never seen her before, yet all I wanted was to hold her and never let her go. Instead, I froze, caught between my stolen memories and my racing heart. Sebastian. The voice was soft, careful, but it struck me harder than any weapon ever could. I didn't need to look to know who it was. It was her, my sister. Leaning against the door was a beautiful woman with long black hair and enchanting golden eyes that seemed to glow in the dim moonlight. I had never seen her before, yet all I wanted was to hold her and never let her go. Instead, I froze, caught between my stolen memories and my closed heart. I had made my choice before. Death was peace. Death was an eternal nap. I'd thrown myself into the river because life was painful and cruel. But now there was someone who wanted me to live. Someone I couldn't abandon even if I wanted to. She was a stranger, sure, but she was also my sister at the same time, a paradoxical problem. On one hand, I had never seen her before, but on the other, I knew everything about her. For a second, the thought of me dying formed in my mind. Would my death hurt her? Would it hurt me? I didn't know the answer, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to find out. Sebastian, are you okay? Her sweet voice broke me out of my thoughts. Yeah, just surprised. I thought you would still be in the academy. My sister was in her second year at Astralis Academy, the #1 academy of the human empire. Not only that, she is the student council president, so all things considered, she shouldn't be here. Now, most normal siblings would have hugged over a tearful reunion or something like that. But our relationship was a little different. Instead of doing something normal, she jumped and caught me in a chokehold. You little rascal, she practically screamed with how loud she was. How dare you ignore my calls? I called you 3 times, 3 times. I was busy, I huffed, trying to pry her arm off, though part of me couldn't help but have a small, startled smile tugging at my lips. Busy, she repeated, eyebrows slightly lifting. Doing what? Scrolling on TikTok. I coughed, something like that. I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside my thoughts were a mess. Should I tell her? Bastard's voice cut through my thoughts without warning. That's a great idea. You should tell her how you jumped in a river, then got burned, and after that, you almost fried your brain. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't, and saying it like that, it makes me sound like a masochist. Electra rolled her eyes and loosened her grip just slightly. Sebastian, I told you to stop wasting your life like this. What if you don't awaken? What will happen then? I smirked in response, tilting my head upwards to meet her eyes. Hell freezing over is more likely than me not awakening. She blinked, surprised by my change in attitude. Oh, really? It's time to tell her. Sebastian Bastard's voice reverberated in my head, unusually serious. Tell her our grand plan for conquering the world. Wow, and here I thought you were about to say something important. My bad. It's my fault for expecting you to say anything useful. Electra's golden eyes narrowed, her voice teasing. My little star. There's a difference in confidence and arrogance. Seeing the worry on Electra's face pained me. In the end, I wasn't her real brother, just an imposter who had the same face and memories. Hey Bastard, what happened to the real Sebastian? He died. Bastard's words rang inside my head, his voice devoid of emotion. The only reason you were able to take control of this body was because he died. I killed him. You didn't kill him. He was dead before you even came here. I didn't bother answering. Bastard's words kept repeating inside my head, loud and unwanted yet impossible to ignore. He said Sebastian had died before I ever came here. A lie it has to be. Bastard always lies. Color started bleeding from my face, and the world narrowed to a single possibility that I had ended something that was never meant to end. Electra's rambling faded into the background. She noticed the change before I could hide it. Her eyes sharpened, and the teasing edge left her voice. Sebastian. She took a step closer. Concern crossed her beautiful face, dimming the golden light of her eyes. What's wrong? You look. I just lifted a hand and said, nothing, just thinking about how to tell you about something. Give me a few minutes. For a second, I saw the retort forming on her tongue, but she swallowed it down, choosing silence over pushing me away. The thought that I killed him gnawed at me again, but this time something else crept in, that it wasn't my fault. Nothing I could or didn't do could have changed the fact that he's dead. I wasn't his executioner. I'm just the shadow that was left behind. The realization loosened most of the guilt in my chest. It didn't vanish, only dulled. I drew in a deep breath and finally turned back to face her. Electra, I awakened a few hours before you arrived. Her eyes widened and a smile blossomed on her face. So that's why you were so confident you'd awaken, she murmured, her tone full of pride. But just as quickly, her expression shifted again. Why did your face go so pale just now? You looked like you'd seen a ghost. I forced a small smile. Probably just an after effect of the awakening. Electra didn't look completely convinced and was about to say something, but I cut her off. Believe it or not, I'm an ascendant now. Electra's golden eyes locked on mine. Then, slowly, her smile returned, brighter this time, filled with pride and something almost childlike. She leaned in, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Incredible. Tell me, my little star, everything that happened. Electra's golden eyes locked on mine. Then, slowly, her smile returned, brighter this time, filled with pride and something almost childlike. She leaned in, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Incredible. Tell me, my little star, everything that happened. Well, if you must know, then you'd better take a seat, because this is gonna be a long story. She settled onto the bed, not bothering to hide the curiosity etched across her face. I was sleeping late like always when I felt this chill and woke up. I opened my eyes, and there I was, floating 5 feet above the ground, black and green mana swirling around me like a damn storm. Most people would have screamed, maybe begged the gods for help. I let a self-satisfied grin spread across my face, and I raised my hands wide for that extra dramatic effect. Not me, I knew exactly what was happening. It felt like the world itself was trying to force its way into me, because really, who else could it have been? I brushed a hand through my hair, as if even the memory demanded I look good, telling it. That's when it appeared, my status screen, the universe itself putting my greatness into words. Electra's lips parted, her eyes still holding that curious gleam. So, what was your affinity? I smirked. Affinity? No, no, no. I think you meant to say affinities. Her brows furrowed, voice rising slightly. Affinities. You can't possibly mean you got two affinities. I smirked. Oh, but I mean exactly that. Electra slowly shook her head, her smile wavering between disbelief and awe. Most people pray for years and still don't get one. And you're telling me you awakened too. Awakening. For most people, it was simple, or at least, that's how the stories made it sound. You hit 17. And if you're one of the 5% of people who Lady Luck smiles upon, your soul finally resonates with mana. Why 17? Nobody knew. It just was, always had been. The unlucky 95%. They stayed ordinary. Farmers, smiths, guards. People who had to rely on ascendants to keep the beasts and other races beyond the walls from tearing them apart. But the chosen few, the ones whose souls lit up, they became something else. You didn't just get an affinity, it was like finding out who you really were. Fire, water, air, light, shadow. Those were common enough, but rarities like dream, memory, even probability, those were legendary, only whispered about in miracles. An affinity wasn't just power, it was destiny. It dictated the heights you could reach, the kind of legend you might become. Most only awakened a single affinity, a rare few gained two. Those were the ones people called geniuses, the ones destined to carve their names into the world. And then there was me. I let the silence stretch, savoring the way her eyes clung to me. Then I leaned towards her ears, voice dropping to a whisper. 3. Electra shot to her feet, her voice splitting the air. 3. I didn't flinch, I only smiled, calm as a saint. Death, life, and soul flames. I let the words linger, savoring how impossible they sounded. Then I tilted my head, grin widening. Tell me that isn't the universe playing favorites. I know how insane it sounds, I said, letting the grin on my face widen. But that's what makes it perfect. People pray their whole lives for a taste of what I have. And me, I didn't just awaken. I shattered the damn scale. 3 affinities, death, life, soul flames. Tell me I'm not amazing. I spread my hands wide, like I was showing her the whole world. Most would kill for this. Hell, they'll probably try. But honestly, let them. It just proves I'm worth killing for. Legends aren't born quietly. They're forged in envy, fear, and a lot of blood. My eyes lingered on hers, daring her to look away. I'm not just different now, Electra. I'm inevitable. The world can love me or hate me, but it sure as hell won't be able to ignore me. I leaned back, smug satisfaction dripping from every word. And really, would you expect anything less from me? Electra's stare lingered, sharp enough to cut through my bravado. Then, at last, a small smile curved her lips. You really do have big dreams, don't you? She said softly, almost to herself. Her golden eyes gleamed, both proud and stern. But dreams alone won't carry you there. This much power is a curse as much as a blessing if it's not guided properly. If you think you can learn to control it yourself, then you're still a child, Sebastian. I'm making a call, she said suddenly, her tone leaving no room for argument. Stay here. Don't move. Before I could even ask who she was calling, she was already halfway to the door, her long black hair swaying behind her like a banner of midnight. The door clicked shut. Silence. Why did you do that? Bastard's voice oozed into my head, smug as always, but there was something else in it now. Curiosity. Do what? I muttered. Tell her. You could have hidden it. You should have hidden it. I thought you didn't trust anyone. I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling. I know, I still don't. Then why? I exhaled slowly, letting the words sit in my chest before forcing them out. Because I've accepted it. This is my reality now. I can't run from it. And I can't pretend it's not happening. And if I'm going to live in this reality, then I need one thing. And that is trust. I said simply. She's my sister. Maybe not my sister, not really. But she is Sebastian's sister. And the feelings I inherited from him are real. No matter how much I want to deny them. I can't carry this weight alone. Bastard. So I trusted her. Brave or foolish, maybe both. A grin tugged at my lips. Yeah, well, that's me. Just as I finished my talk with Bastard, Electra barged back into the room, a small smile on her face. The door creaked open again, and Electra slipped back inside, a hopeless smile on her face. She crossed the room, arm swinging at her side, stopped at the foot of my bed, and said, I made arrangements. My boyfriend's sister agreed to train you. She's strong, probably the strongest ascendant in the Empire. If anyone can help you control your powers, it's her. For a moment, my brain didn't register the important part. Training and strong. Yeah, all good. Then my mind screeched to a halt. Wait, I slowly sat up straighter, blinking at her like I'd misheard. You're what, sister? My boyfriend's, she repeated, perfectly calm, as though she hadn't just dropped a divine calamity on my shoulders. Boyfriend, I all but shouted. You have a boyfriend? Since when? Electra blinked, tilting her head in faint confusion. Since months ago. Months, my voice cracked, and you didn't think this was worth telling me. Do you even know what boyfriends are? They're parasites. They latch onto beautiful women, and no, this won't do. Who the hell is he? Her lips twitched, that teasing smile of hers creeping across her face. Oh, so my little star has time to worry about my love life now. This isn't worry, I snapped, jabbing a finger toward her. This is life or death. What does he look like? How old is he? What family is he from? Does he have money? No. Scratch that. Doesn't matter. I'll kill him anyway. Oh, this is priceless. Bastard's voice chuckled in the back of my skull, his smug tone practically vibrating with joy. You're more worked up about her love life than the fact that you were burned alive and dumped into a death game. Shut it, bastard, I barked out loud, making Electra's brow arch. Bastard, she repeated. I coughed, waving a hand as if I hadn't just confessed to hearing voices. Never mind that. I mean, just tell me who this bastard is. I need to know what kind of guy thinks he's worthy of you. Her eyes hardened just a little, the warmth in them dimming. Sebastian, I know this might have been sudden, but don't slander him baselessly. Oh, for a second, my voice faltered. Sorry, but I have to make sure no one unworthy touches you. Oh my, she murmured, the teasing edge back in her voice. Does this mean you don't trust my judgment? I froze, mouth opening and closing. Well, I didn't say that exactly. She leaned in, voice lowering into a sly whisper. You're jealous, aren't you? Jealous, I sputtered, heat rushing to my face. I am not jealous. I just don't want some random asshole stealing your precious sister away, she finished smoothly, smiling like she just won the lottery. I groaned, dragging a hand down my face. I hate this. I hate all of this. Correction, you love it, bastard purred in my head. Otherwise, you wouldn't be throwing a tantrum worthy of a toddler losing his toy. Die, I muttered under my breath. Sebastian, Electra tilted her head innocently, as though she hadn't just pushed me to the brink. You don't need to worry so much. He's special, and he makes me happy. That last word stabbed through my chest like a dagger. Happy. I wanted her to be happy, but I also wanted to put a shoe up this mystery bastard's ass. Fine, I muttered at last, narrowing my eyes. But I'm watching him. One wrong move, and he's gone. I grumbled under my breath for a while longer, still glaring at her like I could burn this invisible boyfriend out of existence, with sheer willpower. But eventually I exhaled, forcing myself back to the point. Training. Focus, Sebastian. You can't afford to get distracted. Not now. Fine, I muttered at last, rubbing my face with both hands. We'll come back to your romantic decisions later. For now, let's talk about this sister of yours. Who is she? And if you're calling her the strongest, then just how strong are we talking? Electra's expression shifted instantly. The warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by something heavier, more serious, almost reverent. Belle Ardent. The name alone made my chest tighten, my heart skipped, my whole body going rigid as if the air itself had turned to ice around me. Belle Ardent, the strongest human alive, the only human to have survived the Demon King's wrath, someone of full major rank above her, the Reaper of Death, the last wall of humanity, the only documented person with the death affinity. I remembered the passage in the novel where she first appeared, how nations trembled at her presence, how the Demon King begrudgingly acknowledged her strength. Belle Ardent wasn't a person. She was inevitably. And now Electra was telling me she was going to be my trainer. My lips curled into a smirk, not a smile. So that's who you're calling. Belle Ardent, the Reaper of Death herself. I let the words roll off my tongue like they were meant for me alone. Fitting. Really. Who else but Death's own shadow would be worthy to train me? Tell me something, Electra. That rumor about her, is it true? Did she really kill that noble who got a little too close to her? Electra blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in tone, before a tiny smile tugged at her lips. So you've heard that one too? Honestly, I don't know if it's true, but knowing Belle, she shrugged, her golden eyes glinting. I wouldn't put it past her. I let out a dry laugh. Great. So not only is my new trainer the strongest human alive, but she's also got a reputation for murdering nobles. Looks like she's amazing. Oh, wonderful. Bastard's smug voice echoed in my head. I'm sure you'll get along just fine. After all, she loves death, and you're practically begging for it. A match made in heaven. I ignored him like always. Still, a question was gnawing at the back of my mind. Sis, who the hell is your boyfriend? Electra turned to look at me, a smile on her face. Electra's eye met mine, and her signature smile deepened. Rent ardent, her voice was soft, full of love. The most handsome, thoughtful, and wonderful person I know. Bastard's voice crackled in my skull. Delighted. Did you hear that? She just admitted you're not the number one on her list. In other words, she just called you ugly and unthoughtful. My head snapped towards Electra. My look on my face that screamed one word, really. Her smile faltered. She coughed into her sleeves once. Well, you're just as good looking as him. I narrowed my eyes, unconvinced. I leaned back against the pillows, crossing my arms with a huff. Just as good looking, please. Electra, I'm not just as, I'm leagues above him. If the gods sculpted me any better, statues would get jealous. Her golden eyes narrowed, lips twitching like she was trying not to laugh. Do you ever hear yourself talk? You're a narcissist, Sebastian. I pressed a hand to my chest, feigning offense. Narcissist. No, you misunderstand. I'm the most humble person alive. The fact that I allow mortals like you to witness my perfection is proof enough. Bastard started laughing in my head, voice dripping with amusement. Keep going. Maybe she'll actually believe it. On the outside, I may have been acting all cheerful, but inside, a war was raging in my head. Rent ardent. When I first heard his name from Electra, the only thought I had about him was how he wooed my sister. But then, as the memories clicked into place, I remembered. Rent wasn't some background character. He wasn't just Belle's adopted brother. In the novel, he was a third-rate villain, a forgotten stepping stone in the protagonist's rise to power. And the reason he fell so low, because his girlfriend had died. His girlfriend, Electra. Rent had blamed the protagonist for Electra's death. Not without reason either. The one who had set off the chain of events that led to Electra's death wasn't some faceless monster or distant accident. It was Liam Lacheris. Liam, the protagonist. Rent had confronted him once, trembling with grief, voice fragile and on the verge of breaking. Did you know your choices would kill her? That your glory would be built on the corpses of people like her? And Liam, he hadn't denied it. He hadn't even flinched. His answer was quiet, but sharp enough to scar. Yes, that single word had been enough. Enough for Rent to know where to direct his hatred, his despair, his need for vengeance. Liam's rise to power had been paid for with Electra's life, and Rent Arden had sworn that the debt would not remain unpaid. The thought that my sister had died because of some idiot with an overinflated ego nearly drove me to the edge, but I held on. Whether it was just a book or not didn't matter anymore. I could still remember the passage where Electra's light was extinguished, the grief that drove Rent into madness. I swear on all that is holy, I'm going to make your life hell, Liam Lacheris. I'd crush his hopes, destroy his peace, rip apart everything he loved until the very idea of happiness became foreign to him. I'd make him suffer, and Electra would be safe throughout all of it. I didn't feel it at first. My mind was too consumed by rage, by the vision of tearing Liam apart with my bare hands. But Electra, her golden eyes widened. She staggered back a half step, her lips parting in shock. Sebastian, her voice trembled. For the first time since I'd met her, she sounded afraid. Her hands shook, her breathing hitched. She looked at me not like a brother, but like a stranger cloaked in something monstrous. And that was when a voice cut through the haze. Oi, dumbass. Bastard's voice thundered in my skull, sharper than it had ever been. You trying to traumatize your sister on your first day back, or what? Snap the hell out of it before you drown her in that aura of yours. I blinked. Aura. It was then that I saw it. The faint black mist curled around my body, clinging to my skin like water vapor. The room smelled like rust, iron, and rot. The aura pulsed with every heartbeat, an extension of the hatred burning inside me. And Electra stood there, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. I froze. The realization hit me harder than a truck. I was scaring her, the person I had just vowed to protect. Sis, I whispered hoarsely, the death aura writhing as if it could taste my shame. Her golden eyes widened, trembling with something I'd never seen in her before. Fear of me. No. I slammed my will against the black mist, focusing so hard that I didn't notice my nails drawing blood from my palms. The death aura resisted, thrashing violently, eager to taste, to consume, but I refused. I forced it down, inch by inch, even as my veins screamed and my lungs burned. With a final desperate shove, the aura recoiled, fading like smoke in the wind. The suffocating weight vanished, leaving only silence and the sound of my ragged breathing. I collapsed forward onto one knee, sweat dripping, chest heaving as if I'd clawed my way back from hell. When I finally looked up, Electra was on her knees before me. Her face was wet. Her eyes were both fierce and fragile. She cupped my jaw like someone holding a wounded animal. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have been scared of you. I shouldn't have let myself." She was apologizing to me for being frightened of the monster I'd almost become. She hugged me and promised to never let me go. Even amid all this madness, Rent crept back into my head like a stubborn ex who refuses to let go. But was he actually perfect for her? He had done everything in his power to avenge her, to bring the one who caused her death to justice. Even if he had failed, even if his blade never reached Liam's throat, that kind of devotion, that kind of love, was undeniable. Could I even compare? Rent's entire existence had been reshaped by Electra. He had lived, suffered, and raged for her sake. And me, I was here, trading jokes, boasting about my so-called perfection, while deep inside I was terrified of losing her. For a moment, the cheerful mask I wore threatened to crack, because maybe, just maybe, Electra had already found the person who truly deserved her. And it wasn't me. "Tomorrow," Electra said softly, her hand still resting on my cheek. "We'll go meet her. Belle, your new teacher." Her golden eyes stared into mine. No trace of the fear from earlier. Only determination. "So get some rest tonight, little star. You'll need it." I swallowed. But oddly, my throat was dry. Tomorrow I'd be face to face with Belle Ardent, the Reaper herself. Such a charming title for a charming woman. And now she'll get a charming student. Electra leaned closer, pressing her forehead lightly against mine. A gesture that carried both comfort and command. "No more thinking yourself into exhaustion. Sleep. Whatever weight you're carrying, let me bear it for now." I almost laughed at that. If only she knew the truth. But instead of answering, I gave a small nod. My body was heavy, my mind still drained from the overuse of my will. And honestly, the idea of sinking into unconsciousness didn't sound so bad. "Good," she stood, smoothing down her uniform, the mask of the unshakable student council president sliding back into place. "Tomorrow will change everything for you, Sebastian. But no matter what happens, you're not alone. Remember that." Her words lingered even after she left the room, the door closing with a soft click. I lay back against the sheets, staring at the ceiling. My hands trembled faintly, though whether from exhaustion, anticipation, or dread, I couldn't tell. Tomorrow I would meet Belle. Bastard's voice broke the silence like a crack of thunder. "Oh, this will be fun. You're meeting Death's second favorite child first thing in the morning. Try not to get killed before breakfast." "All right." I closed my eyes. Sleep didn't come easily, but eventually, it came. The sunlight bleeding through the curtains dragged me out of sleep. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, half wishing I'd never woken up. But the smell of something warm and familiar pushed me out of bed. A splash of cold water across my face jolted me awake. The stranger in the mirror, Sebastian Negros, stared back at me with messy black hair and golden eyes rimmed with fatigue. This was the first time I had actually seen myself, and I still wasn't accustomed to this new version of me. A quick shower followed, steam filling the small room. By the time I dressed in a plain shirt and trousers, I almost felt normal, almost. The scent of sizzling eggs and toasted bread grew stronger as I walked toward the kitchen. Electra was already there, standing over the stove, her hair tied back in a loose knot. She glanced at me over her shoulder and smiled. "You're up. Sit down, Sub. Breakfast is ready." I sat at the small wooden table, its surface worn from years of use. No servants, no polished silver trays, no luxury here. Just my sister humming softly as she placed two plates down. The food wasn't extravagant, just eggs, bread, and a slice of meat. But compared to my past life, it looked like a feast. "You've gotten thinner," Electra said, her golden eyes narrowing in that way only an older sister could manage. She set her own plate down but didn't touch it right away. "Eat, don't argue." I muttered something under my breath but picked up the fork anyway. The first bite hit harder than expected. Simple, warm, real. For the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe I understood why people say food is the biggest joy of life. Electra finally sat across from me, watching until I'd eaten enough before speaking again. "After breakfast, we'll head out. Today, you're meeting Belle. Until then." She gave me a teasing smirk. You're stuck with me. I leaned back in the chair after another bite, letting out a dramatic sigh. You know, Electra, it's almost unfair how good I look this early in the morning. I mean, look at me. I gestured vaguely at myself with the fork, fresh out of bed, showered, and already radiating with perfection. If I were anyone else, I'd be jealous. Electra froze with her fork halfway to her mouth, then slowly set it down, raising a brow. Perfection. That's what we're calling uncombed hair and dark circles now. I smirked. These aren't dark circles. They're marks of mystery and depth. Women would kill for eyes as soulful as mine. Oh, I'm actually impressed. Bastard's smug voice echoed in my head. Not because you're right, don't get me wrong. You're still a narcissistic brat. But because you've managed to convince yourself of it. That's real talent. Shut up, I muttered inwardly, still keeping the grin on my face. Electra rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might actually get stuck. Oh, please. You sound like one of those arrogant noble brats who can't stop staring at their own reflections. I mean, can you blame me? I grinned, leaning forward on the table. When the gods made me, they clearly went all in. I'm basically a gift to humanity. Heh, a gift, huh? You're not wrong. You are a gift, a cursed one, wrapped in arrogance and tied with a bow of stupidity. But still, a gift. Funny, you're awfully chatty for a parasite who does nothing but insult me. Insults, please. This is praise coming from me, don't get used to it. I ignored him, focusing on the way Electra pinched the bridge of her nose, muttering, "Saints save me." But despite her exasperation, a small laugh escaped her lips. There it is. I pointed my fork at her triumphantly. That laugh, proof that deep down, you agree with me, don't deny it, sis. You know I'm handsome. She shook her head, finally taking a bite of her food. Handsome, maybe, annoying, definitely, The only destiny you're heading toward is getting smacked on the head by me. If you don't finish your breakfast. I pretended to gasp. How dare you? Belle Arden herself will be honored to meet me. She'll take one look at this face and realize destiny has sent her the perfect student. You actually believe the Reaper of Death will swoon over you. Gods. I almost hope she does smack you. It'd be the highlight of my existence. You'll see, she'll respect me. I chuckled, stabbing another piece of egg and tossing it into my mouth. Fine, I'll eat. But only because this masterpiece you cooked deserves the attention of someone as great as me. She muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, unbelievable. But the smile tugging at her lips betrayed her. Breakfast didn't last much longer. Electra finished first, rinsed her plate, and shot me a look that screamed, don't dawdle. All right, eat up, we've got a long day ahead. She grabbed her jacket from the chair and tossed me mine. I pushed the last bite into my mouth with an exaggerated groan. You know, greatness shouldn't have to rush. History's finest figures never did anything before noon. Correction, Bastard snorted. History's finest figures didn't waste half the morning flexing in front of their sister. You're just jealous. Of what? Your bedhead. I ignored him, standing and stretching like I was showing off on stage. Fine. Let's get moving before you scold me again. The people must be spared from such tragedy. Electra shook her head, muttering something about regretting ever spoiling me. But I caught the faintest smile at her lips as she slung her bag over her shoulder. We packed quickly. Electra was efficient, double-checking every little thing, while I made a show of lazily tossing my clothes into my spatial ring, like I had all the time in the world. She didn't even look up. Sebastian. Yes, dear sister. Her golden eyes lifted, sharp as a blade. Fold your clothes properly. Now, I sighed, raising my hands in surrender. Fine. You're lucky I'm merciful today. I smirked as I half-folded them just to avoid another lecture. Once done, we walked out to the front, where Electra's black car waited in the driveway. The morning air was crisp, the sunlight filtering through thin clouds and painting everything in a pale glow. Electra clicked the keys, the car chirping to life. She glanced at me as she opened the driver's side door. You ready? I leaned casually against the hood, smirking. Please. The world's been waiting for me since the day I was born. I'm just fashionably late. You're late, all right, late to common sense. Electra rolled her eyes, but her lips curved just slightly upward. Get in the car, oh great one. Let's see if Belle survives your ego. I grinned, climbing into the passenger seat. Don't worry, sis. She'll thank you for bringing me to her, or bury you alive. The engine roared to life, and with that, we were on our way. The car glided onto the main road, smooth as silk. The faint hum of Mana engines barely audible beneath the quiet. I rested my elbow against the window, eyes locked on the city outside. It was breathtaking. Skyscrapers spiraled toward the heavens, their surfaces alive with glowing veins of blue neon that pulsed in rhythm, like the heartbeat of a giant. Some towers twisted in elegant arcs, others stood straight as spears, their peaks crowned with floating rings of light that hovered in lazy rotation. The glass walls shimmered with enchantments, catching the sun and breaking it into thousands of dancing shards. The streets below matched the grandeur. Roads of immaculate white stone stretched in seamless patterns, smooth and polished so perfectly that they seemed to glow with their own faint radiance. Radiant symbols pulsed faintly on the ground, guiding traffic like living veins of mana, bending and shifting to direct flow without a single sound of horns or chaos. And above it all, the sky was alive. Dozens, no, hundreds, of cars hovered overhead in layered streams of traffic, gliding through invisible lanes as if tethered by unseen threads. Each left behind faint streaks of color, white, blue, even the occasional purple or gold, which lingered like brushstrokes on a cosmic canvas before fading away. The people here matched the city. Through the window, I caught glimpses of men and women in elegant coats threaded with glowing lines of mana, uniforms lined with badges of power, weapons sheathed in crystalline cases on their hips. Not a single one of them looked weak. For a second, my chest tightened. I was an intruder here, someone born for filth and scraps, who somehow found himself in the heart of the Empire's jewel. Beautiful, isn't it? Bastard's smug voice echoed in my mind. A world polished so clean you could eat off its streets, a paradise, and you're still the same idiot who drowned himself in a river. Shut it. Oh, don't pout. Pretty boy, I'm proud of you. Your jaw hasn't dropped in 5 whole seconds. Progress. I gritted my teeth and forced my gaze ahead, but it was impossible not to stare. Each district we passed grew more extravagant. Massive floating platforms suspended in the air by glowing pillars, holographic banners shimmering with academy crests, colossal statues of heroes past carved into mountain-sized monoliths. This wasn't just a city, it was a futuristic marvel as well as a show of power, a reminder that humanity had clawed its way to the top and refused to ever fall again. And as we sped down the pristine white road, I couldn't help but wonder, was I supposed to survive in a world like this, or be crushed by it? The drive stretched on, each district we passed more dazzling than the last. The city seemed endless, an empire of light and steel, glowing veins of mana humming with life. And then, suddenly, it wasn't. Ahead, the road widened, rising like a bridge carved from pure white stone. Floating lanterns hung suspended above it, their flames burning without fuel, lighting the way towards something massive. My breath caught. Astralis Academy. It didn't just sit at the edge of the city. It towered above it, a citadel of gleaming spires and marble walls that stretched so high, they seemed to pierce the clouds. At its heart, a colossal dome shimmered with a golden light, its surface inscribed with runes so complex my head hurt just looking at them. And surrounding it all, like a second sky, was a barrier. A vast dome of translucent light shimmered overhead, bending the sunlight into a rainbow sheen that painted the air. Threads of blue and gold crawled across its surface like veins, pulsing faintly as if the barrier itself was alive. Every few seconds, ripples of power spread across it, like waves in water, reminding me of just how impossible it would be to breach. The car slowed as we neared the gates. Massive obsidian doors stood at the entrance, carved with images of dragons, phoenixes, and titans locked in eternal war. Guards clad in armor that radiated power stood on either side, their weapons glowing faintly, their gazes sharp enough to cut stone. Electra's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her golden eyes shining with quiet pride. "Sebastian," she said softly, her voice steady, "welcome to Astralis Academy." I stared at the shimmering barrier ahead, my chest tightening with something between awe and dread. The car rolled forward, the barrier rippling as it began to part for us. And that's where the world shifted. The car eased forward, the obsidian gates yawning open as the barrier rippled, bending like liquid glass. For a moment, I thought we were about to slam into it. Then the world shattered into light. A rush of energy washed over me. It wasn't like touching anything physical, more like grasping something otherworldly. The sensation clawed down my skin, prickling my nerves with icy needles while at the same time warming my chest like a hearth. My breath hitched as my vision warped, colors bending in impossible shades, as if the barrier was peeling me apart and stitching me back together in the same instant. Every part of me screamed that I didn't belong here, and yet, at the very same time, it felt like the world itself was whispering, "Welcome." Then, as quickly as it came, the sensation snapped away. I gasped, sucking in air like I'd been underwater, my body tingling all over. And when I opened my eyes, I froze. The inside of Astralis Academy wasn't just an academy. It was a city. Towering structures rose all around us, their white stone spires laced with streams of glowing blue mana that pulsed like veins through the streets. Hovering bridges connected them, crisscrossing overhead like a web of light. Trees taller than houses shimmered faintly with silver leaves, their roots wrapped in crystal. Floating lanterns bobbed lazily in the air, each one humming with runic power. There were people everywhere. Students in pristine uniforms walked in clusters, laughing and bickering in the middle of the streets. Academy staff, in crisp butler and maid uniforms, managing restaurants. And above it all, at the heart of this academy, stood the Ethereum, a colossal tower, so high it vanished into the clouds, ringed by countless smaller spires. Its walls shone with inscriptions of ancient runes, and at its peak, a giant crystal pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, each thrum spreading across the entire barrier above, feeding power into this world within a world. I couldn't help but mutter under my breath, my voice barely a whisper. This isn't an academy, it's an empire. Beside me, Electra smiled, her golden eyes soft but proud. No, Sebastian, this is Astralis, the place where humanity's future is forged. She gestured to the sprawling streets before us, alive with floating stalls and glowing runes etched into the very stone. Right now, we're standing in the main plaza. It's the place where students with free time come to relax, enjoy various activities managed by academy staff. Her voice carried that effortless calm she always had when explaining something, as if she were a teacher and I was the only student. She lifted her chin toward the colossal tower dominating the skyline. The Ethereum isn't just the symbol of Astralis, it's also our home. My eyes followed her gesture. The closer I looked, the more monstrous the tower looked, its white stone laced with streams of mana that climbed its surface like rivers of light. The first 5 floors of the Ethereum, she continued, are reserved for first years. A rite of passage, in a way, humble beginnings before they rise higher. The next 5 houses the second years, and above them, the third years. Each level is harder to earn, and each level is closer to the sky. I squinted upward, trying to see where it ended, but the peak was already swallowed by the clouds. And at the very top, I asked. Electra's lips curved faintly. The instructors, the last 5 floors belong to them. Their presence keeps the academy itself breathing. Without them, Astralis wouldn't be Astralis. I leaned back against the seat, muttering, of course, put the gods in the heavens. She ignored my jab, turning instead to gesture outward as the car rolled deeper into the plaza. The academy is divided into 4 sectors, each one serving a purpose. To the north, where we were now, lay the main plaza, a sprawling heart where students wandered between floating stalls, shimmering fountains, and leisure halls. Mana lanterns drifted lazily overhead, carrying faint illusions of news, announcements, or sometimes just jokes scrawled by bored enchanters. To the west, beyond the towering walls, loomed the Hallowvale forest. Even from here, I could glimpse its silver canopy swaying, wrapped entirely in a shimmering barrier. It's where students face their midterms. Electra explained. They're sent in to fight beasts. Some come back with trophies, others don't come back at all. I raised a brow, educational. Her golden eyes flicked to me, unimpressed. To the east, a complex of marble and steel sprawled across the horizon, crowned with dozens of crystalline domes. That's the academy wing. Classrooms, libraries, training arenas, laboratories. It's where the theory is hammered in, and the power is sharpened. And finally, to the south, the land fell away into a vast arena, the Colosseum, an unbroken circle of stone and mana-forged steel, over a mile in diameter. Towering gates gaped open like the jaws of titans, and banners rippled along its walls. That's where the academy tournament is held, Electra said, pride glinting in her voice. But it's more than that. The Colosseum is always open to duels, grudges, challenges, wagers. If you can't settle it with words, you settle it there. I couldn't help the grin that spread across my face. Finally, I said, something civilized. Electra only sighed. I leaned back, drumming my fingers against the car door as we rolled through the plaza. All right, tour guide, I get the grand layout. North Plaza, scary forest, shiny classrooms, oversized arena. But where are we actually going right now? Her golden eyes shifted toward the towering heart of the academy. The Ethereum, she said simply. I need to pick someone up from there first. After that, we'll head east to the academy wing. I arched a brow. The god tower first, homework later. Got it. She gave me a look that was half amusement, half warning. Try not to embarrass yourself before we even make it inside. I smirked. Please, embarrassment is for lesser beings. I'll make an entrance. Sebastian, she muttered, pinching the bridge of her nose. The car curved toward the base of the Ethereum, where an archway the size of a mountain loomed ahead, etched with runes that thrummed like a heartbeat, even from here. The sheer size of it made me feel like an insect in comparison, and for once, I kept my glorious mouth shut. The elevator of the Ethereum hummed softly, its walls glowing faintly with lines of runes as it carried us upward. The air inside felt weightless, like we were being pulled through water rather than lifted by mana-powered machinery. Electra stood beside me, arms crossed loosely, eyes fixed on the ceiling as if she were already planning 10 steps ahead. We were going to pick the mystery someone Electra had mentioned earlier. I leaned back against the smooth wall, arms folded, pretending to be at ease. In truth, my chest still carried that coil of tension from earlier, the knowledge of who was waiting for us above gnawing at my mind. The elevator gave a soft chime, and then the doors opened. The air felt heavier here. Wide stone paths stretched out between dorm towers, each one glowing faintly with protective wards. Banners hung from their walls, fluttering gently. The truth was that the Ethereum had some sort of space enchantment, making it much bigger than it appeared from the outside. Students were everywhere. Some sparred in open courtyards, their mana colliding in bursts of color. Others lounged on floating platforms drifting lazily in the air. Even in their downtime, every one of them radiated pressure. This is where the second years live, Electra said, her voice low. Every single one of them is dangerous, remember that. She wasn't wrong. Just walking past them made my skin prickle. These weren't students. They were predators. We moved quickly through the plaza of dorms. Electra's pace was steady, almost impatient, until suddenly she froze. Her body went stiff, shoulders tight, eyes narrowing at something further down the path. I stopped beside her, frowning. What is it? No answer, just silence. Electra, I called again, but my words barely left my mouth before her voice cut through the air. Rent. The sudden brightness in her tone stunned me. Before I could even blink, she moved, her body blurred, vanishing from my side so quickly that to my untrained, mundane eyes, it looked like teleportation. One instant she was beside me, the next she was halfway down the path, and then she was in his arms. The boy whose name she'd shouted barely had time to open his arms before she leapt into him, hugging him with a force that almost knocked him back, her face buried against his chest, her laughter spilling into the open air. I froze, rooted in place, staring. Her expression, I had never seen it before, radiant, unrestrained, like the world itself had melted away the moment she saw him. The sight made my chest tighten. Around us, a few students stopped to watch, but none seemed surprised. Some chuckled quietly, others exchanged knowing looks, a couple just smiled and walked on, clearly used to the sight. To them, this was nothing new, a routine scene. But to me, it wasn't routine at all. It was something I didn't understand, something that felt like a knife turning slowly in my gut. I finally forced myself to move, my eyes narrowing as they landed on the boy holding Electra like she belonged there. Rent. His name hissed through my mind like poison. He wasn't particularly flashy. Brown hair that caught the light in soft shades of chestnut. Green eyes that glimmered with warmth as he looked down at my sister. His smile was open, gentle, the kind of smile that could win anyone over. His posture was relaxed, confident without being arrogant, like he belonged in every room he walked into. To the casual observer, he was just a boy, a kind, dependable one at that. But I knew better. From the novel's pages burned into my memory, I knew exactly who he was. Rent Ardent, the so-called noble rival, the boy who would one day bare his fangs against the protagonist. A boy who, blinded by grief, would try to murder Liam von Luceris. And the reason for his grief, the reason for his descent into villainy, standing right in front of me, Electra. My jaw tightened as I watched her laugh, still in his arms, unaware of the dark script written for them, unaware that her future death was the spark that would set him ablaze. Rent finally noticed me standing a few steps away, silent as stone. His green eyes flicked in my direction, calm and curious, before he spoke. Electra, he said, his voice smooth, carrying an easy warmth that made my teeth clench. Who's this? She turned, still smiling, and slipped out of his arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. Oh, right? I forgot you two haven't met yet. She gestured between us. Rent. This is my little brother, Sebastian. Her voice was soft when she said my name, filled with pride that only made the pit in my stomach twist tighter. Rent's smile widened. He took a step forward, hand outstretched toward me in greeting. So this is the famous little star she keeps talking about. I've heard plenty. I stared at his hand, just a hand, ordinary, harmless, but in my head, I could already see it stained with blood, clutching a blade, raised against the protagonist because of her death, because of Electra. I forced myself to move, unclenching my fists, slipping my hand into his. My grip was firmer than it should have been, sharp enough that I saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Sebastian," I said simply, my tone flat. He chuckled lightly, unfazed, and gave my hand a squeeze before letting go. "Good to finally meet you. I was starting to think your sister was hiding you away on purpose." Electra rolled her eyes at that, but she was smiling again, like the world was simple and safe. I kept my eyes locked on him, still unwilling to soften my tone. "What are you even doing here?" I asked flatly. "Shouldn't you be spending time with your noble family?" Rent chuckled softly, scratching the back of his neck. His green eyes curved with the same easy warmth as before. "Ah, that's because he began." But Electra cut him off. "He's the person we were here to pick." The three of us walked side by side, the hum of mana-filled lamps guiding our path through the academy's upper corridors. Electra led with her usual calm stride. Rent matched her pace with an easy smile, and I trailed a step behind, my mood more sour the closer we got. We weren't heading anywhere ordinary. We were heading south, towards the Colosseum, where Belle's personal training room was located. The air itself thickened as we approached, mana clinging to my skin like static. Every step felt heavier, as if the academy itself was warning me to turn back. I muttered under my breath, "Perfect. From drowning in a river to walking into hell in just a single day. Truly, I'm blessed." Finally, some self-awareness. Bastard chimed in with mock pride. "Keep it up. And you might even die with style next time." I grit my teeth. Electra glanced back at me with a reassuring smile. "Don't be nervous. Belle isn't cruel. She'll guide you." Her words were meant to comfort me. They didn't. The three of us stopped before a massive obsidian door, its surface carved with faint, glowing runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. I didn't even get the chance to raise a hand because the door creaked open on its own. A suffocating wave of pressure spilled out, cold and sharp, crawling over my skin like claws. My lungs tightened, and with it came the smell, thick, metallic, unmistakable, the stench of death. Rent's expression hardened, though he stood his ground. Electra reached back, brushing her fingers against my wrist for the briefest moment. It wasn't words, but it was enough. "Don't falter." I swallowed, my throat dry as sand. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet carried me forward anyway, because beyond that door was Belle, and if I couldn't face her now, I'd never survive what was waiting later. The moment I stepped inside, the stench of death only deepened. The hall, an endless expanse of black and white, no banners, no decorations, nothing to soften the void, just polished white stone walls veined with onyx streaks, and a floor so reflective it felt like I was walking on the surface of still water. The emptiness was deliberate. It left no distractions, no comfort, only the weight of the presence waiting within. At the far end of the hall, raised on a black dais, sat a throne-like chair, and on it, Belle Ardent. Her long hair spilled over her shoulders, black as midnight, but faint streaks of red glimmered through it like dried blood catching the light. A blindfold wrapped across her eyes, concealing her eyes. She wore a full set of armor, deep blue-black, forged in a style that looked far older than any academy uniform or noble plate I'd ever seen. It seemed to drink in the light, yet glimmered faintly at the edges, as if reality itself bent around her. And at her side, resting casually against the throne, was a sword. Its blade glowed faintly, pulsing with an eerie blue light that almost hummed in my ears. The weapon radiated the same suffocating aura as the hall itself, like it had tasted death countless times, and was hungry for more, even without eyes, even without words. Belle's presence pressed down on me harder than anything I had ever felt. Without a word, Belle rose from her throne. The sound was small, just the faint scrape of her armor shifting against the chair. But in the silence of the hall it thundered like a war drum. Her presence changed instantly. A moment ago, she had looked calm, distant. Now the air itself seemed to stiffen, as though the walls, the floor, the ceiling were holding their breath along with me. Her blindfolded head turned in my direction, slow and deliberate, though I knew she couldn't see me. I felt naked under that unseen gaze. My chest grew tight, a pressure building there like someone pressing a blade against my heart. Without warning, she moved. Her hand reached for something beside the throne. Not the glowing blue sword that rested like a guardian at her side, But a second weapon I hadn't noticed, a blade, forged of steel darker than night, its edge faintly reflecting the light in the hall. She didn't speak, she didn't warn me, she just threw it. The sword screamed through the air, fast enough to whistle. My mind blanked. My body lurched forward before I realized what I was doing. Fingers snapped around the hilt, the cold metal slamming into my palm hard enough to rattle my bones. The weight nearly dragged me down, and I stumbled half a step, legs straining under it. I let out a cold breath, my knuckles whitening around the grip. The blade was heavy. Belle, unfazed, turned her back on me. From behind the throne, she pulled out a wooden training sword. She held it loosely in one hand, almost lazy. But even from here, I could feel the danger bleeding off her stance. That wooden blade felt more threatening than the weapon I held. The silence pressed harder. My heartbeat filled my ears. That was when it hit me. Not just nerves, not just fear. Something deeper, something ancient. The hairs on my arms rose. My skin crawled. Every muscle in my body locked, trembling. My instinct screamed at me to drop the blade, to flee, to get as far from this blindfolded woman as possible. But my feet stayed planted. I couldn't move. Belle raised her wooden sword and stepped forward once, casual, almost lazy. The sound of her boot on the white floor cracked like thunder, and in that instant, I knew. This wasn't just training, it was a lesson, and I was the subject. The instant Sebastian blinked, she was gone. Crack! Her wooden sword came down like lightning, and he barely managed to bring his own up in time. The impact thundered through his arms, the shockwave rattling his bones. His feet left the ground as he was launched backward, slamming into the wall with a dull thud. Air exploded out of his lungs. His chest burned, blood filling his mouth as he coughed violently. Sebastian staggered forward, gasping, arms trembling. "On your feet." Bastard's voice roared in his skull. "She's already moving again." A blur of motion filled his vision. Whoosh thud. Her sword cut through the air and smashed into the wall where he'd been standing half a breath ago, the wooden blade leaving a crater in stone as if it were paper. "She's insane," Sebastian gasped, stumbling sideways, his heart hammering so violently it hurt. "Left, left," Bastard barked. Sebastian threw himself left, barely bringing his blade up in time. Thwack. The collision jolted every nerve in his arms, a shockwave of pain racing through his bones. The wooden sword screeched against his knees buckling as he struggled to hold against her impossible strength. Belle pushed forward without a sound, no instruction, no acknowledgement, just cold, suffocating intent. Sweat stung Sebastian's eyes, his palms burned, his breath came in ragged gasps. Swish! Her blade cut across his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. He hissed in pain, instinctively stepping back. "Focus, damn you. She's not slowing down just because you're whining." Another strike came, faster than before, aimed at his ribs. His arms moved on their own, tilting his sword just enough to deflect. Clack! The force nearly sent the weapon flying out of his grip. His shoulders screamed. His wrist felt like it might snap in two. He dropped to one knee, chest heaving, but there was no reprieve. Belle stepped forward like a phantom, her blade already descending. Bastard bellowed. Sebastian raised his sword above his head in desperation. Crack! The impact rang like thunder. His black blade bent under the sheer force, his arms vibrating violently. His legs gave out, sending him crashing to the floor. Damn it, Sebastian gasped, choking on blood. "Don't quit, redirect, not block. Use her weight against her." He forced himself up, stumbling into a shaky stance. She was already coming, her movements sharp and unhesitating, like a predator striking prey. Whoosh! Her blade carved a blur toward his side. Sebastian twisted, parrying weakly, letting her strike skid past. It still rattled his arm, but he stayed on his feet, barely. His chest screamed for air. His body was breaking down, but her strikes only got faster. Clack! Every blow rattled through him, forcing him backward step after step, until his back nearly hit the wall again. "Duck!" Bastard snapped. Sebastian dropped low, her sword slicing through the air where his neck had been. Shit! He rolled away, scraping his elbows against the ground, just barely regaining balance. The moment he stood, she was on him again. Her wooden blade swung down, and this time he twisted at the last second, angling his. Thwack! The clash sent sparks of agony up his arm, but the deflection worked. Her blade slid off his and struck the floor, cracking it open with a deafening splinter. For half a second, he thought he saw an opening. Sebastian lunged forward, gritting his teeth, swinging at her torso. She tilted her sword lazily, batting his aside with contemptuous ease. Before he could even process, her foot snapped out, slamming into his chest. Boom! The world spun. He flew backward, crashed, and rolled across the floor until he sprawled out, coughing violently, blood dripping from his lips. His vision blurred. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the sword. She's not human, he wheezed. Shut up and stand. If you collapse now, you're dead, and unlike me, she doesn't care to keep you breathing. Sebastian pushed himself up again, somehow finding the strength in his screaming muscles. His knees wobbled, his sword trembling in his grip. Belle stood still, blindfolded, unreadable. She didn't rush him this time. She just waited, silent, patient. It was worse than her attacks. Her silence suffocated him, filled him with dread. Step. She advanced again, one calm step at a time. Sebastian swallowed, lifted his sword, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. Whoosh crack. The next flurry was a storm. Her strikes rained down without pause, without hesitation. Clack thwack. Each impact jarred him, tearing his muscles and chipping at his bones. He stumbled backward, his chest heaving, his vision tunneling, until Bastard roared again. "NOW, push back!" Sebastian screamed, thrusting his blade forward with everything he had. Belle tilted her head. Her wooden sword snapped up, knocking his away effortlessly. And then she swung. Crack! Her sword slammed into his side, sending him sprawling across the floor again, coughing, spitting blood. His sword clattered beside him. His arms refused to move. And still, she didn't speak, didn't acknowledge, just advanced again. Her footsteps echoed as she approached, slow and deliberate. The wooden sword hung at her side, but he didn't trust it. Every step felt like a threat, every shift of her weight enough to make his battered body flinch. Sebastian pushed himself up on trembling elbows, blood running down his chin. His voice was hoarse, broken, but the words slipped out anyway. "Did I pass?" For a moment, she just stared down at him, unreadable behind the blindfold. Then, in that cool, detached tone that made her feel less like a person and more like a statue of flawless jade, she finally answered. "You did." The relief hit Sebastian harder than any of her blows. His body gave out, and before he could stop it, he collapsed onto the cold floor, the world around him fading into darkness. Belle ardent. The world shimmered in shades of gray. I tilted my head, listening to the faint rhythm of his heartbeat, slow, uneven, fading into the soft rhythm. Sebastian had finally passed out. I wish I could say I was impressed, but I wasn't. He was weak, so much weaker than the others who'd come before him, the young masters of noble clans, brimming with arrogance and power, their auras polished like gemstones. They'd all come to train under me, to prove themselves. Most of them were stronger than Sebastian even before they picked up a sword. And yet, one by one, I failed them. I could still remember their cries when their blades snapped, the way their resolve shattered long before their bones did. They had power, but no heart. Some had both, but they still failed. Sebastian was different, not stronger, just different. His presence felt strange, like a song I had once heard in a dream, off-key, unfamiliar, but it stayed with me, humming at the edge of my senses. I sighed softly, lowering my sword. The air was still trembling from our clash, faint cracks that traced the outline of broken stone and scattered dust in the air. I couldn't see any of it, not with the curse still chained to my eyes, but I could feel it. I could feel him. The world had been like this ever since that day when the Demon King touched me. I still remember the heat of the battlefield, the smell of burning mana, the roar of the Elven King's forest magic colliding with the Demon King's Absolve fire, and me, caught in the middle. An SS rank ascended against two SSS rank monsters. I should have died there. Everyone thought I did, but I didn't. I remember the moment his claws brushed across my face, a gift, he had whispered. See the world as I do. And when I opened my eyes, color was gone, the light, gone. The world turned to smoke and shadow. Still, I survived, and in this dim place, I learned to see differently. Through sound, through mana, through intent. The world speaks if you're quiet enough to listen. My fingers brushed against the blindfold. I still wear it, not to hide my eyes, but to remind myself that I once saw light. I turned back toward the boy sprawled on the floor. His breath was shallow, his aura dim but stubborn, bruised, bleeding, half broken, yet still clinging to life with both hands. I crouched down beside him, reaching out, stopping just short of his forehead. His mana flickered faintly, uneven, restless, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Something was different about him. It shouldn't have mattered. It shouldn't have moved me at all. And yet, something inside me stirred. It wasn't pity. I don't feel pity. It wasn't admiration either. He was far too weak for that. It was something else, something I couldn't name. A faint pull, deep and quiet, like an invisible thread tugging at the edges of my chest. Maybe that's why, when he looked up at me earlier and whispered, "Did I pass?" I said yes. I still don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to see where that strange thread would lead. I stood, brushing the dust from my clothes, the wooden sword resting lightly against my shoulder. His breathing had steadied now. Good. At least he wouldn't die tonight. "Sleep, Sebastian," I murmured. "You passed, for now." The words drifted out softly, lost to the dim air. And as I turned to leave, the shadows around me shimmered faintly, not with color, not with light, but with something else entirely. Something that felt like death. Sebastian Necros. My eyes cracked open to a ceiling I didn't recognize. White stone. Faint blue light pulsing through veins carved into the walls. The smell of antiseptic herbs clung to the air. I groaned, shifting on the too soft bed beneath me. "Congratulations, Sebastian." Bastard's voice oozed with smugness. "You survived, barely. Though, honestly, I've seen toddlers put up a better fight against wooden spoons." I rubbed my forehead, wincing at the soreness in my arms. Yeah, laugh it up. I'll have you know I looked incredible while getting beaten half to death. Pure grace. A performance worth remembering. Oh yes, breathtaking. The way you vomited blood on the floor really stole the show. I'm sure Belle was deeply moved by your artistic interpretation of a dying fish. I smirked despite myself. Good. That means my suffering wasn't in vain. If the strongest woman alive remembers me, even as the guy who got pummeled into a wall, then I'm already unforgettable. Unforgettable. More like unfixable. Bastard snorted. "Still, you didn't run. That's surprising. Almost admirable. Almost. Please, I didn't run because I was too busy dazzling everyone with my resilience. Handsome, brave, and now battle-scarred. Tell me, bastard, is there anything I can't do? Win. Wrong. I just gave Belle a false sense of security. Let her think she's stronger than me. Classic strategy. I'll crush her expectations later. Yes, I'm sure collapsing in a puddle of your own blood was all part of your brilliant plan. A tactical masterpiece. Exactly. Now you're catching on." I stretched, wincing as pain lanced through my ribs. My whole body screamed at me to stay down. But my ego didn't let me. Pain is temporary. Glory is eternal. You weren't glorious. You were pitiful. A flailing twig being snapped over and over. Wrong again. I was. A beautiful tragedy, like a fallen star. I paused. A very handsome, charismatic, charming fallen star. More like a fallen idiot. I rolled my eyes and flopped back onto the pillow, letting the ache settle. Details. I'll win next time. Probably. Maybe. Definitely. Yes, keep lying to yourself. It builds character. Before Bastard could fire back another insult, the air above me shimmered. My body froze. I blinked. My heart skipped. A system prompt. I blinked as a faint ding echoed in my skull. A translucent prompt shimmered into existence in front of me. Words etched across it in an elegant script. My throat went dry. "Bastard, are you seeing this?" "Seeing what?" "The system screen. This thing floating in front of me. You forget, Sebastian, we share a body, not a mind. Whatever you're staring at, I can't. If it's only in your head, then it's yours alone." I barely registered his words. My focus was nailed to the message in front of me, its glow almost daring me to blink. "Goddess of life and death requests an audience. Do you accept?" The letters pulsed faintly, like the beat of a heart. I let out a shaky laugh, though my hands trembled as I clenched the sheets beneath me. My body still ached from the beating Belle had given me, every muscle stiff, my ribs sore with each breath. Yet beneath the pain was something else, an anticipation that made my chest feel tight. It was ridiculous. My pulse hammered in my ears, part fear, part exhilaration. I'd been knocked around, humiliated, and now a goddess wanted to meet me. "Sebastian, you've gone quiet. What's on that screen?" But I didn't answer. For the first time since I'd arrived in this world, Bastard's voice was nothing but static at the edge of my mind. All that existed was me, the trembling in my hands, and that single question hanging in front of me. "Goddess of life and death requests an audience. Do you accept?" My eyes lingered on the prompt, my pulse quickening with every flicker of its glow. "Yes," I whispered, the words slipping out before I even realized I'd spoken. The moment I did, the screen vanished, shattering like glass. 1,000 shards of light that dissolved into the air. Then it hit me. A force yanked at my core, not my body, but something deeper, my soul. It was the same suffocating pull I'd felt when I first awoke in this world. That impossible sensation of being unstitched from flesh and reality. The infirmary blurred away, walls and ceiling melting into formless dark. My limbs turned weightless, useless, as if I'd been stripped of all substance. My chest constricted, every instinct screaming that I was being dragged somewhere I had no right to go. Sebastian, what's happening? Bastard's voice was distant, distorted, like it was echoing across a vast canyon. He couldn't follow. I was alone here. The pull grew stronger, relentless, until all sense of body vanished. My soul was no longer mine. I was being taken. The pull ended as abruptly as it had begun. When my senses returned, I wasn't in the infirmary anymore. I wasn't anywhere that could be called real. I looked down. No, I didn't. There was nothing to look down with. No hands, no arms, no face. Just a faint sense of shape. The echo of a body that wasn't there. I was hollow. Nothing more than a flicker of self adrift in a place that felt wrong. Around me stretched a city, a forsaken fragment of divine craftsmanship. The buildings were jagged silhouettes of stone and steel, all pitch black, eroded and fractured like they had been abandoned for eons. Empty windows gaped open, lifeless and unlit, staring like dead eyes into the void. The sky above was the same, black, not a starless night, but an absolute absence of everything. No light, no warmth, no moon, just a crushing blanket that pressed down on me, endless and empty. The ground mirrored it, cracked obsidian veins spiderwebbing across a surface that swallowed every hint of color. Each step I tried to take made no sound, no weight, no sensation at all. I couldn't feel the air, couldn't feel myself breathe, because I wasn't breathing. There was no body to breathe with. The silence was maddening, the kind of silence that wasn't quiet, but absolute. A silence that roared. A desolate city, a soulless sky, and me, adrift in it, a ghost without flesh. Everything about this place was abnormal, like it was some kind of giant paradox. The silence stretched on, oppressive and suffocating in its nothingness. I drifted aimlessly, my soul flickering like a candle threatened by a storm. Then the air, or whatever passed for air in this forsaken place, shifted. At first, it was faint, just a distortion high above the cracked street. The shadows bent, as if recoiling from something they recognized. Then a pulse deep and resonant, vibrating through the empty city like a heartbeat. A spark of black light bloomed in the void above. It twisted, rippling outward in twisted waves, as though the darkness itself had been condensed into something tangible. The light rift, sharp and suffocating, spilling across the ruined walls. Then came the red, thin strands at first, weaving into the black, threads of blood searing across the air like veins. They pulsed with vitality, alive yet dreadful, dripping power with every flicker. Violet light followed, slow and purposeful, a glow that seeped through the cracks between the black and red, not forceful, not frantic, but inevitable, like the slow turn of the world, the creeping march of fate. The three lights coiled together, converging, condensing into a single form, black devouring, red burning, violet binding. And then she was there, the goddess, a body sculpted of pure light and shadow, humanoid yet untouchable, her presence spilling into the city like a tide. Her figure shimmered, delicate yet commanding, radiating the stillness of eternity. Her eyes, if they could be called that, burned with violet fire, peering down at me as though I had been dragged naked before judgment. The ruined city seemed smaller now, shrinking beneath her presence. The swirling light stilled, and her form settled into something whole. She floated above me, her presence vast yet not suffocating, like an embrace that spanned the entire blackened city. For a moment, there was only silence, then her lips parted. "I finally meet you." Her voice was soft, tender, like a small fire in a long winter. The sound alone felt like a hand reaching for me, wrapping me in a familiarity I couldn't understand, but couldn't push away. She hesitated, as though the next word meant more to her than everything else she'd ever said. Finally, it left her lips, filled with motherly love. "My son." Her words didn't make sense. They couldn't. "My son." The sound echoed through the hollow city, soft and trembling, and somehow, it felt heavier than everything I'd ever carried. I stared up at her, throat tight, every word clawing to get out but dying before it reached the air. "No." It was all I could manage, just that one broken word. "No," I said again, louder this time, my voice shaking. "You're wrong." Her violet gaze never wavered. It was calm, patient, unbearably kind, like a mother watching her child's tantrum with love instead of anger. And that made it worse. So much worse. I'm not. My voice cracked. I bit it back, hating the way it trembled. I'm not your son. I'm not anything. A laugh tore from me, bitter and thin, echoing through the dead air. I was a damn street rat. You remember that, don't you? You picked me because I was convenient. Some random body to toss into a dying world. Still, she didn't move, didn't argue, just watched me silent, unblinking, unshakably gentle. That look hurt more than any blade could. Don't look at me like that. My chest ached. I couldn't even explain why. Don't look at me like I matter. The flames in her eyes softened, like dusk bleeding into twilight. You do. Something cracked inside me. Stop. I wish I could tell you why, she said quietly, her voice trembling in a way that didn't sound divine at all. But the time hasn't come. When you reach S rank, the truth will find you. I wanted to scream, to tell her I didn't want the truth, that whatever she saw in me was a lie, a cruel mistake, that I was still that broken boy, scavenging from the gutters, praying to gods that never listened, that I didn't deserve her eyes, her voice, her warmth. But my voice failed me. The words burned in my throat, and all that came out was a broken whisper. Why does it hurt so damn much to hear you say that? For a heartbeat, her light flickered, softer now, dimming around the edges. Somewhere inside, she said, you already know. What she said shouldn't have mattered, but it did. It dug into places I didn't even know were still bleeding. My knees felt weak. The endless void around us pulsed faintly, responding to her fading presence. I wanted to move, to reach her, to demand the truth, but my body felt frozen, like the air itself had turned to glass. She began to fade. Wait, no. I reached out, but my hands were nothing. Smoke against light. Don't just. Her voice drifted through the dark, soft as the sigh of a dying star. I have two gifts for you. The void itself seemed to hold its breath. The first, her voice trembled, heavy with something that sounded too much like sorrow. A forbidden sword art, born at the dawn of time, when death itself was still learning its first language. The air split open. Black wisps slithered from her unraveling form, thin, fluid, alive. They swirled around me, each whispering in a tongue that existed before sound itself. Every tendril hummed with meaning too ancient to name, rushing against my skin like memories that weren't mine. And then they pierced through me. Pain, not the kind that makes you scream, the kind that breaks what you are, the kind that makes you want to kill yourself. The sword art didn't enter my mind, it rewrote it, each motion, each strike, carved into me like scripture etched in bone. I saw a blade that could silence hearts, a dance that ended wars, a technique whispered by death to its first reaper. Images flashed, a god bleeding beneath an endless sky, a shadow cutting through creation itself, the blade moving faster than grief. It wasn't just a technique, it was a language of endings, a hymn of silence. The knowledge screamed through me, too vast, too cruel, too alive. When it ended, I fell, or I would have, if falling still meant anything here. My thoughts felt burned out, hollow, my hands trembled. Phantom muscles remembering movements my body couldn't yet perform. I could still feel it inside me, a weight, a song, a promise. Her voice came again, faint now, unraveling at the edges. The second is a companion. The void stirred again. From what was left of her body, light condensed, not violet now, but black and molten, alive with something that bent space. It pulsed with energy that made the air shiver. It coalesced, spinning, condensing, until it became solid. An egg, white, streaked with rivers of blue, as though lightning had been frozen beneath its shell. Its surface gleamed with symbols I couldn't read, runes shifting like breath. It pulsed once, twice in rhythm with my heartbeat. No, not with mine, as mine. I stared, wordless, as it drifted closer, drawn by something deeper than will. And before I could move, it sank into my chest. A scream tore out of me, not from pain. That word didn't do it justice. It was like being unmade. Like every piece of who I was being peeled apart and rebuilt. Something foreign, alive and burning, was fusing into my soul. The egg's pulse merged with mine, its energy clawing through every vein of my existence. I felt it settle deep, deeper than my heart, where my essence lived, where something new now slept. Make it stop, I gasped, but there was no one left to hear, only the echo of her fading voice. Protect it well, my son. The words fell like blessings and curses all at once, and then everything shattered. I hit something solid, hard, cold, real. My lungs seized as air rushed back into them, dragging me out of the darkness. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The world spun. Then sound returned, faint, distant. The rustle of sheets, the slow drip of water. When I blinked, I was back in the infirmary. The cracked ceiling above me looked almost unreal after what I'd just seen. My whole body throbbed, every nerve raw, trembling from a storm I couldn't name. But beneath the pain, something stirred, a whisper of movement, deep inside my soul, soft, faint, alive. And with it, the steady beat of a second heart, quiet, patient, waiting. I woke with a sharp breath. The infirmary ceiling stared back at me, cracked and dim, like it had been watching the whole time. Sweat clung to my skin, cold and sour, and for a second, I swore I could still feel that heartbeat echoing under mine. It wasn't real, it couldn't be. The thought that something was living inside my soul made my stomach twist. The idea alone made my skin crawl. I pressed a hand to my chest anyway, one heartbeat, just one. Good. I needed a distraction, something to ground me, so I pulled up my status window, and there it was. Nixian dirge, the Song of Death. Rank, a forbidden art whispered into existence at the beginning of time. 10 verses, 3 truths, life, death, existence. To master it is to master the cycle of creation, and its inevitable unraveling. First forms. The first chords of the dirge, mortal hands can wield them, but every strike strains the soul. First form, breath of renewal. A stance that channels life force into stamina. Every movement revitalizes the user, reducing exhaustion and allowing battles of attrition. Second form, pulse trance infuses the blade with the rhythm of life, amplifying reaction speed and enhancing physical strength in sync with the heartbeat. Third form, vital bloom. Each swing releases a surge of restorative energy, mending shallow wounds of the user or allies touched by the aura of the strike. The more fluid the motion, the stronger the healing. Fourth form, hollow thrust. The first taste of death. A piercing thrust that leaves a conceptual void within the target, severing their connection to mana, stamina, or even breath for a brief but crippling instant. Second forms. Fifth form, ashen dirge. A strike that withers whatever it touches, flesh, steel, even magic and mana, reducing them to ash. Sixth form, sepulture wail. The stance manifests the sound of death itself. Every swing releases a wave of soul-crushing resonance, forcing enemies' bodies to believe they are already corpses. Bones fracture, hearts stutter, and weaker wills are extinguished instantly. Seventh form, Elysian overgrowth. A paradoxical stance of overwhelming vitality. Strikes unleash rampant life force that overruns enemies' bodies, forcefully growing flesh, bone, or even tumors inside them until they burst apart against allies. It blooms into radiant healing that can regrow lost limbs and destroy curses. Final forms. The last verses, not meant for mortals, not meant for gods. These stanzas sing of endings too vast to comprehend. To touch them is to risk the annihilation of all that is, was, and will be. Eighth form, Annex. Sever the blade cuts inevitability itself. Strikes undo what must happen, erasing prophecies, inevitabilities, or absolute laws. No shield, spell, or destiny can claim certainty against this cut. Ninth form, Cosmic Requiem. A stance that drags all nearby existence into the blade's arc. Stars dim. Time bends, cause and effect collapse into a single point. When released, the cut does not travel forward, it erupts everywhere at once. Final form, the Void Psalm. The final note of the dirge. One stroke, and whatever is touched is erased, not just from space, not just from time, but from the concept of being. Entire civilizations, worlds, or even universes could vanish, their memories scoured from the multiverse. System note: only the first 4 forms are unlocked. Attempting higher stances risks catastrophic backlash, soul erosion, identity collapse, or annihilation. My hands trembled, not from fatigue, not from the sweat still slick on my palms. This is so unbelievably overpowered. My voice was so quiet, you could barely hear it. This wasn't a sword art, it was a funeral hymn for reality. A dirge so heavy it felt like my soul should shatter just reading it. And someone, my so-called mother, had given it to me. Why me? Even if she truly thought she was my mother, this was beyond charity, beyond kindness. It was like handing a starving child the seed of a black hole. What the hell am I supposed to do with this? I whispered, voice breaking between awe and dread. Bastard was silent. For once, even his smug existence seemed uncertain. The hush stretched between us, heavy, uncertain. Then his voice finally came, low and almost hesitant. Sebastian, how in the abyss did you get something like that? I stared at the glowing script in front of me, my chest tightening. Part of me wanted to explain, to dump everything on him right there. But there was still one more thing I needed to see. I'll tell you, I muttered under my breath, forcing my tone steady. But not yet. Not until I check something else. Something else. Bastard's curiosity flickered in my head. I nodded faintly, though he couldn't see it. Yeah, the egg. My focus shifted, pulling open the final notification I had ignored until now. The gift she had pressed into my chest along with the sword art. My heart pounded as the description unfolded before my eyes. Soul egg, a dormant vessel of potential, bound to your soul. By supplying it with mana daily, the egg will incubate until it hatches. Upon hatching, it will form into your soul beast, a creature that reflects the depths of your essence, and simultaneously your soul weapon, a living armament bound only to you. Note: growth and form are entirely dependent on the user's soul and the mana supplied. The result may vary from useless to catastrophic. I stared at the glowing text, brow twitching, a beast and a weapon in one, tied directly to my soul. That was something. But compared to Nixian dirge, compared to a sword art that could tear apart life, death, and existence itself, this felt almost tame. Not worthless, no. I'd be a complete idiot to dismiss it. A soul-bound weapon was nothing short of legendary. But it didn't shake me the way the sword art did. The egg felt like potential, like a gamble, something I'd nurture and wait on. The sword art, though, that was different. That was a guillotine hanging above the world. And somehow, the goddess had handed me both. Bastard's voice came again, still quiet, lacking its usual smugness. Sebastian, let me see your memories, just this once. I blinked at the ceiling. Fine, go ahead. A few beats of silence passed, then, fucking hell. I raised a brow. That bad. That bad. That bad. You just got handed a god-killing sword art and a soul egg like it's some holiday gift basket. Do you know how insane that is? Hey, don't forget, I'm the one who had to go through excruciating soul pain. Pretty sure I earned it. Oh, right. Poor little Sebastian almost died again. Do you want me to throw you a party for surviving your nap with the goddess? I snorted. Yeah, actually. Balloons, cake, and maybe a trophy shaped like me. Engrave it. World's most handsome tragic hero. Tragic, yes. Handsome, debatable. Blasphemy. You share my body. You stare at this face every day. Don't act like you're not grateful. Grateful. Please, every time I look at you, I regret not being born as literally anyone else. Sure, keep telling yourself that, partner. One day, you'll admit I'm the best looking guy in any world. You're insufferable. Damn right. And just like that, the heaviness of everything, the goddess, the sword art, the egg, slipped to the background. For a moment, it was just me and Bastard, trading words like two idiots with nothing better to do. The door creaked open before I could toss another insult. Sebastian. Electra rushed in, skirt swishing as she dropped to her knees beside my bed, her hands instantly wrapping around mine. Her grip was firm, trembling just slightly. Are you okay? Talk to me. Are you hurt? I tilted my head, a smirk tugging at my lips despite how heavy my body felt. Of course I'm okay. What, did you think something could take me out that easily? Her relief lasted to heartbeats before her expression darkened like a storm rolling in. Reckless. Her voice cracked like a whip. Do you even realize what you just did? You pushed yourself until you couldn't even stand. You can't even use mana yet. You have no strength. You could have been torn apart out there if it was anyone other than Belle. Why didn't you forfeit? What were you thinking? I chuckled weakly, raising a brow. You're acting like I almost died. Worst case scenario. I would have taken a long nap. A nap. Her voice pitched higher, outrage plain on her face. You collapsed. Do you think this is a joke? Not a joke. Just a fact, I said smoothly, settling back against the pillows. It takes more than a little exhaustion to kill me. She's got fire. Bastard piped up in my head, tone annoyingly amused. I like her. I think I'll take her side in this one. Traitor, I shot back. Not a traitor, just smarter than you. Look at her face. She's about 2 seconds away from choking you, and I'd pay good money to see it. I rolled my eyes, which only made Electra tighten her grip on my hand. Sebastian, this isn't funny. You're not invincible. Tell that to the fact I'm still breathing. Her mouth fell open like she wanted to shout at me, but she snapped it shut and glared instead. Rent stepped forward, arms crossed, looking like he had a speech prepared. Sebastian, this behavior is unacceptable. If you had simply communicated your admission of defeat. I tuned him out immediately, not because I disliked him, just, his voice had the same effect as background music in a bar. It was there, but did I need to pay attention? Not really. I tuned him out halfway through. Ah, here it comes, the responsible older brother speech. Bastard snickered. 10 silver says he's rehearsed that one in the mirror. Not worth the bet, I replied dryly. I stopped listening at Sebastian. Cold, I like it. Rent kept talking, his words washing over me like distant background noise. While Electra still held my hand like I might vanish if she let go, I sighed dramatically, lifting my chin. Honestly, you're all overreacting, yes. I can't move without feeling like a bag of bricks, but am I alive, still devastatingly handsome, still sharp enough to put you all in your place? The answer is yes, in case you're struggling. Devastatingly, Electra sputtered, caught between outrage and disbelief. Unbelievable, you're impossible. Oh, she's so mad. Bastard cackled. Keep going. This is the best entertainment I've had in ages. I should have let my soul stay gone. I muttered inwardly. Electra huffed, cheeks flushed, while Rent still buzzed on about responsibility. Bastard snorted and whispered insults in the back of my head, and me, I lay there, smirking like the arrogant bastard I was, basking in the chaos. But if they were yelling at me, it meant I was still here to hear it. Electra's rant finally lost steam, her shoulders heaving as she released a long sigh. For a second, I thought she was done. Then she dropped the next bomb. Fine, enough of this. What matters is moving forward, starting tomorrow. You'll be training under Belle for the next 6 months. I blinked. Come again. Belle will be your instructor until you're ready to enter the academy. She repeated, voice firm. You'll be living with her during that time. The words sank in, my jaw went slack. Then, what? The shout rattled the infirmary walls, made Rent pinch the bridge of his nose, and probably woke up half the dormitory. 6 months with her, I sat bolt upright, nearly sending Electra sprawling as I flailed my hands in disbelief. Do you have any idea what you're asking of me? To live under the same roof as a 25-year-old woman for half a year, a goddess among mortals forced to gaze upon my flawless face every morning and night. She'll die, Electra, die. Her heart won't survive the strain of seeing perfection at the breakfast table. I'll have blood on my hands, and it won't be from training. It'll be from beauty-induced shock. Rent stared at me for a beat, then deadpanned. Roses are red, cacti are prickly. Holy fuck, that escalated quickly. This is gold. Bastard howled in my head. Keep going, you're killing me. Actually, scratch that. You're killing Rent. Look at his face. You're not helping, I shot back. Electra pressed her fingers to her temple like she was fighting a headache. Sebastian, this is not up for debate. Not up for debate. I clutched my chest dramatically. You're condemning me to 6 months of torment, to be ogled, admired, worshipped, or ignored, Rent muttered. Ignored. I gasped like he'd spat on my family name. Who could ignore this? I gestured at myself with both hands, hair mussed, sweat-soaked, half dead in a hospital bed. I am a masterpiece. More like a disasturpice. Bastard snorted. Shut up, I grumbled. Electra pinched the bridge of her nose again. You'll live, Sebastian. You'll train. And Belle won't so much as glance at your masterpiece if you keep running your mouth like this. I gawked at her. Betrayed. Unbelievable. You toss me to the wolves just like that. She's not a wolf. She's your teacher. She's a predator. And I'm the prey. Rent muttered something about regretting ever stepping into this room, while Electra's patience visibly frayed. But I just flopped back onto the bed with a groan, throwing an arm over my eyes. This is cruelty, I declared. Pure, unfiltered cruelty. And the best part, Bastard said smugly, she's blind. Oh, I forgot. The next morning, at exactly 7 a.m., I woke to find someone standing at the foot of my bed. A maid, not the warm, smiling kind from fairy tales. This one looked carved out of steel. Posture straight, eyes forward, an expression unreadable. Her black and white uniform was flawless. Not a wrinkle in sight. Wow, I muttered, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. I didn't think the academy would actually send me a personal wake-up service. At this rate, I expect breakfast in bed tomorrow. She bowed just enough to acknowledge me. Good morning. I am an academy staff member. Because you are not yet officially enrolled, you are not permitted to travel the floors alone. I will escort you to the top floor. I groaned, flopping back onto the pillow. Ah, yes, the 21st floor. My prison for the next 6 months. Living with a blind woman who tried to kill me yesterday. Lovely. Correction, Bastard said, his voice dry. She did kill you yesterday. Just in a really slow motion way. Please, if that was her trying, I would have won if I wasn't holding back. You coughed blood on the second swing. Tactical intimidation. The maid cleared her throat softly, not even blinking at my theatrics. Instructor Belle is waiting. Please be ready. Dragging myself out of bed, I straightened my clothes and threw my hair back with all the flair of a king preparing for Coronation, very well. If the great Belle Ardent wishes to bask in my presence, who am I to deny her? She's blind. Shut up. With a sigh that was equal parts dramatic and noble, I gestured to the door. Lead the way. My dear jailer, may the gods protect Belle's fragile heart. After all, she'll have to live under the same roof as me. 6 months, she'll need your protection. The maid didn't comment on my nonsense. She just turned on her heel and started walking, every step as precise as a metronome. I followed, stretching out my shoulders and rolling my neck like I was heading into a spar. Truth was, my legs still felt a little shaky. Yesterday's training hadn't left me with just bruises. It had left me with phantom aches in my bones. We were on the first floor of the Ethereum when we entered the elevator. The door slid shut with a hiss, and the capsule began its slow ascent. I shoved my hands into my pockets, trying to look casual. So, 21st floor. Huh. Belle's personal quarters. Very prestigious, very suffocating. You're sweating, Bastard said. What happened to your hole? Living with a 25-year-old goddess of death bravado. Shut it, I'm just mentally preparing myself. For what? Breakfast. I exhaled through my nose, eyes fixed on the glowing floor indicator. 6 months. Under the same roof as her. Not exactly what I pictured when I got thrown into this world. Did you think you'd get a harem and a throne by chapter 3? Maybe. The elevator hummed. The higher it rose, the heavier the atmosphere became. Like the air itself knew what kind of monsters lived above. My earlier dramatics started to feel thin, stretched over the knot twisting in my stomach. I didn't even feel like bragging. I just adjusted my stance, forced my shoulders back, and braced myself. The maid didn't look at me, didn't say a word, but somehow her silence made it worse. Like she knew I was walking into something I wasn't ready for. When the elevator finally dinged, my hands had curled into fists without me realizing. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped out behind the maid. The air on this floor felt different, denser, heavier, but not because of magic, because of how normal it was. Unlike the 20 levels beneath, there was no spatial expansion here, no sprawling libraries, training halls, or endless corridors wrapped in enchantments. The 21st floor was small, just a single hallway. It stretched barely 20 meters ahead, lined with smooth stone walls the color of old parchment. No windows, no decoration, just the faint hum of mana in the walls and the sterile gleam of the overhead lights. The floor beneath my feet was simple marble, worn faintly at the center where countless steps had passed. A few doors lined the left wall, storage rooms maybe, but the hallway led unmistakably toward one thing, the door at the far end. Belle's door. It stood apart from everything else, darkwood framed in muted silver, unadorned except for a small sigil etched at eye level. The mark of an instructor. The light caught on its surface like oil, reflecting just enough to make it seem alive when you weren't looking straight at it. The quiet Preston, not peaceful quiet, the kind that made you aware of your own heartbeat. Cozy. Bastard muttered. If your definition of cozy includes claustrophobic death corridors. Shut it, I murmured under my breath, my eyes fixed on the door. This was it, Belle Ardent's living space, my new home. If the rest of the academy was a cathedral built to awe, this floor was a cell built to contain. I stopped at the end of the corridor. The door loomed in front of me plain, silent, waiting. For a second, I just stared. My hand hovered over the handle, hesitating. What's wrong? Afraid she's going to eat you alive, Bastard teased. She might, I muttered. Then I turned the handle. The door opened with a quiet click, and everything I'd been bracing for, the cold, refined aura of a warrior, the suffocating stillness of a killer's den, shattered the instant I stepped inside. The room wasn't what I'd imagined. Instead of the refined, intimidating aura I had expected from a scary woman like Belle, the place looked lived in. Cozy chairs pushed slightly out of line, a blanket draped half off the couch, books stacked haphazardly on a side table. But it wasn't the room that left my jaw hanging. It was Belle. She was pacing slowly across the floor, wearing a loose blue hoodie and black trousers. Her hair was tied back messily, a few strands falling across her face. Where is it? She muttered, frowning. I know I left the remote here somewhere. How am I supposed to? Ugh. The problem was, she already had the remote, clutched tightly in her hand. She turned, still muttering under her breath, waving the remote around. A woman blind for 3 years, wandering her room in circles, hunting for the very thing she already held. I stood there, staring. After everything, the goddess, the sword art, the soul egg, Bastard's endless chatter, this was what I walked into. I blinked once, twice, then, finally, said in a deadpan tone. This is not what I expected. I take it back, Bastard said dryly. Maybe she is dangerous to herself. You might be right, I muttered, still staring at the blind woman chasing a remote around her apartment like it was a wild animal. I stood frozen in the doorway watching in real time as the image I'd built of her, the aloof, unshakable warrior, the blade that cut through armies, the name whispered with reverence and fear, shattered like glass. In the book, she was a phantom of inevitability, a woman who carved her legend without hesitation or misstep. Here, in reality, she was pacing her living room in a hoodie and trousers, brow furrowed as she muttered to herself. I could have sworn I left it on the table. Unless the table grew legs and walked away. Do tables do that? She paused, lifting the remote to her face, then shrugged and tucked it into her pocket. Guess I'll find it later. I felt a muscle in my jaw twitch. She's serious. Dead serious, Bastard said dryly. And here I thought she'd be this terrifying swordmaster who'd crush your spirit. Turns out she can't even crush her laundry pile. I blinked, watching her wander over to the couch and pat around the cushions with the same distracted air. Her movements weren't clumsy. She was still balanced in that way fighters always were. But her focus was everywhere except where it should have been. This, I muttered, deadpan, is not what I expected. In the stories, you were a storm, a blade, an unstoppable force. My thoughts were bitter, incredulous, and here you are, a woman arguing with furniture and losing. Careful, Sebastian, Bastard chuckled. She might smite you with the almighty power of losing her own belongings. I dragged a hand down my face. Living with this woman for 6 months, forget danger, forget training, forget the academy. You're in hell, Bastard whispered, and it's beautifully furnished. Belle tilted her head slightly. Blindfold aimed in my direction. Oh, you're here already. Her voice was soft, low, the kind that didn't fill the air so much as drift through it, like she was still halfway somewhere else. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Should I? You can come in, she said, already turning away before I'd finished. Her fingertips brushed the wall, tracing its surface like she was mapping it in her mind. I was looking for something. Her hand drifted along a shelf, paused, then rested on an object that had been there the entire time. The same remote she'd pocketed earlier. Ah, here, she sounded faintly surprised, as if it had reappeared on its own. That explains everything. Does it? I muttered. No answer. She set the remote back down like nothing had happened and turned her head toward me again, blindfold catching the light. You're smaller than I thought. That one threw me off. I'm 6 feet tall, I said flatly. At least 2 inches taller than you. She tilted her head again, thoughtful. Really? A small pause. You sound shorter. I stared at her. That's not how height works. She seemed to consider that for a moment, then nodded once as if acknowledging the point or perhaps just deciding the discussion was over. She crossed the room, bare feet silent against the polished floor, and lowered herself onto the couch, hands folded neatly, expression unreadable. So, you're the one I'm supposed to teach. The words weren't cold or inviting, just they're weightless, spoken because they needed to be, not because she cared to say them. I've heard rocks start conversations with more energy, Bastard muttered. Don't insult the rocks, I thought, still watching her. Belle moved her head toward the couch and patted the cushion beside her. You can sit. Her tone didn't change, not an order, not an invitation, just a statement, quiet and certain. I crossed the room and sat down, leaving a polite gap between us. The couch dipped slightly under her weight, or maybe under the weight of everything I didn't understand about her. She stayed still for a few moments, hands resting lightly on her knees, then said, Training will be difficult. You'll think you're dying, she continued, still calm. You won't be, not unless you're careless. That's comforting. She nodded slightly, as if taking that seriously. It should be. Most people don't realize how much dying feels like living until they've done both. I blinked. You say that like you've tried it. A ghost of something flickered across her lips, not quite a smile, not quite sadness either. Maybe I have, hard to say. Some days I think I left parts of myself behind a long time ago. Her blindfold tilted toward me, unseeing, unreadable. Do you have that problem, too? I hesitated, leaving parts of myself behind. She nodded. I think I'm still figuring out which parts one even have. That's good, she said simply. Means there's something left to lose. For a long moment, she said nothing else, just sat there, one hand loosely clasped in the other, posture straight but somehow absent. Like her body was here, but her thoughts wandered somewhere far away. Then, in the same even tone, she added, You should rest. There's a room next to the kitchen. Use it." That tone still airless, soft, but carrying a quiet finality left little room for argument. That's it. No welcome speech, no ominous threats about what'll happen if I slack off. "You'll find out," she said. "Tomorrow." "That's worse," Bastard muttered. I'd take the threat. I stood, rubbing the back of my neck. "You really don't talk much, do you?" "I talk plenty," she replied softly. "People just don't listen long enough." That didn't sound airheaded. It sounded like something that should have been written on a gravestone. I turned toward the kitchen, heading for the small door she'd pointed out. My hand brushed the knob. "Wait." I glanced back. After a long pause, she reached absently toward the table, patted around twice, and asked in that same calm voice, "Have you seen the remote?" I stared, hard. This would be hell. And it had a hoodie. I stepped into the room Belle had pointed out earlier. The first thing I noticed was how well furnished it was. A wardrobe stood along the far wall, already filled with neatly folded clothes. A desk with fresh parchment and ink rested near the window, and beside it, a small shelf stocked with books, some old, some clearly new. Even the floor had been polished to a faint sheen, with a woven rug soft beneath my boots. But the centerpiece was the bed, a massive king-sized thing that dwarfed everything else. Broad enough for 3 people, with sheets that looked like they belonged in a nobleman's estate. For someone who had spent most of his life on the cold streets, the sight alone was enough to make me pause. I collapsed onto it without hesitation. The mattress swallowed me in comfort, my body sinking deep into its embrace. My eyes slid shut, and for a few breaths, I let myself enjoy the quiet. But rest never came easily. My thoughts drifted back inevitably to the egg. I'd almost forgotten about it. The strange, pulsing thing that now lived inside my soul, quiet, still, but unmistakably alive. When I focused, I could feel it faintly, like a second heartbeat buried beneath my own. I knew what I had to do. Feed it mana every day. That was the instinct that came with it. The same way one just knows when to breathe. But that was the problem. Electra's warning about mana still lingered in my mind. It's not something you play with. Misuse it, and it'll burn you out from the inside. And death mana, mine, was worse. It wasn't just unstable, it was hungry. A living force that didn't flow, but devoured. One wrong pulse, one slip of focus, and I wouldn't just faint or bleed. I'd probably explode. Still, the more I thought about the egg, the less dread I felt. Instead, something close to gratitude. Whatever it was mine. Something born from me. Something that needed me. For a guy who'd spent most of his life alone, scraping by. That thought hit harder than I wanted to admit. I exhaled slowly, letting my hand fall over my chest where I could feel that faint rhythm again. "Guess it's just you and me now," I murmured. "Try not to kill me when I feed you, all right?" "Adorable," Bastard said dryly. "You're talking to your soul like it's a pet." "It is a pet," I muttered, "or it will be. You're going to name it, aren't you?" "Obviously. Gods help us all." I smirked faintly, eyes heavy but calm. For the first time in forever, I might have another pet. Whatever this thing was, whatever it would become, it was a part of me now, and that meant I would take care of it. And somehow, that made the darkness around me feel a little less empty. Sebastian was deep in sleep, sprawled across the enormous bed like someone who hadn't felt real comfort in years. The sheets were soft, the mattress swallowed him whole, and for once, his body wasn't tense from travel. His breathing was slow, steady. Then something heavy crashed onto his chest. The breath was knocked out of him, and he shot awake with a strangled gasp. His tired eyes blinked against the morning light leaking through the curtains. At first, all he saw was a blur of fabric and shadow looming over him. It took his drowsy mind a few moments to process what exactly was happening. Belle, sitting on top of him, blindfold in place, head tilted curiously, as if she were studying him like a particularly odd insect. Sebastian froze, then let out a scream. "Well, what the hell? I know my looks are ungodly, but assaulting me in my sleep is unacceptable. At least let me be awake first." "Smooth," Bastard's voice cut through his panic like a blade dipped in sarcasm. "This only happens in Annam. You should be honored." Sebastian flailed uselessly against the weight pressing into his chest, glaring up at her with wide, bloodshot eyes. Belle didn't so much as twitch. "I came to wake you," she said, voice flat and matter of fact. "It is almost time for training." That's not what this looks like," he shot back, choking on his words. "This looks like something completely different." Belle tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable beneath the blindfold. "I tripped," she said simply. Sebastian blinked. "You tripped On what? The air. The floor's empty. I think it moved, she replied after a pause, as though that explained everything. He stared at her. The floor moved. She nodded once. It does that sometimes. He buried his face in his hands, groaning. It's too early for this. A long silence stretched between them. His chest ached under her weight. And finally the words slipped out before he could stop them. All right, but could you maybe get off? You're kind of heavy. The second the last word left his mouth, his eyes went wide. His hand flew up to clamp over his lips as if he could shove the insult back inside. Idiot. Calling a woman heavy. That was basically suicide. But Belle only tilted her head at him, expression unreadable beneath the blindfold. She made no sign of offense, no shift in her voice. Nothing at all to indicate she'd even registered the last part of the comment. Belle stood up smoothly, brushing off her trousers though there wasn't a speck of dust to be seen. You should get ready. Breakfast is on the counter. You cooked? Yes. Should I be worried? Probably. She turned to leave, but paused at the doorway, head tilting faintly toward him. You're smaller than I remember. Sebastian groaned, dragging a hand down his face. We already went over this. I'm 6 feet tall. 2 inches taller than you. 2 inches. She said, tone unreadable. Doesn't feel that way. She's got you pegged, Bastard said, amusement dripping from every word. Sebastian stared at the ceiling in defeat. I hate this place. The table was set like something out of a noble's banquet. 2 steaming plates sat between us, perfectly portioned, perfectly presented. Golden brown meat glazed with something shiny, a side of vegetables that actually looked roasted instead of burnt, and a small bowl of soup that smelled faintly of herbs and spice. If I didn't know better, I would have thought a royal chef had wandered in overnight. Belle sat opposite me, posture straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her blindfold caught the light just enough to give her an oddly serene look. If not for that blank expression, she might have even passed for civilized. This looks good, I said cautiously. It should, she replied evenly. I made it. I frowned. Right. I picked up my fork, stabbed into the meat, and took a small bite. The moment it hit my tongue, my entire body rejected it. My throat closed up. My brain screamed poison, and before I could stop myself, I spat it out onto the plate. What the hell was that? I gasped, grabbing the nearest cup of water and downing it like my life depended on it. Across from me, Belle's brows furrowed slightly. She didn't move otherwise, no twitch, no frown, no visible sign of irritation, but somehow, I could feel the atmosphere shift. You don't like it? She asked, tone perfectly flat. I blinked at her, then down at the plate again. Belle, you have to try to mess food up this badly. I don't even understand how you did this. It looks perfect, it smells perfect, and then it tastes like someone boiled despair in a pot and seasoned it with regret. Colorful, Bastard said dryly. You might have just insulted an ancient war hero over breakfast. I'm not joking, I muttered, ignoring him. This is a culinary disaster. You'd think something that looks this good would at least be edible. Belle tilted her head again, a single lock of hair falling loose from her bun. That's strange, she said calmly. I followed the recipe. What recipe? Something from a book I borrowed from my brother. She paused, as if searching her memory. Page 42. Roasted meat with courage and confidence. Did the recipe have salt in it? Yes. Did you use salt? I couldn't find it, so I substituted with pepper. I stared at her. You what? They were there, she said simply, and they looked edible. I slammed my forehead into my palm so hard I saw stars. Belle, you cook like a Cajun woman serving her beloved slime lord a last meal. Her head tilted slightly to the side again. That sounds insulting. It is, I said flatly. Very. You're a brave man, Sebastian, Bastard said, but maybe not a smart one. Belle picked up her fork, calmly speared a piece of the same meat that had just tried to assassinate me, and took a bite. She chewed once, twice, and nodded. Tastes fine. I blinked at her, incredulous. You can't taste fine. You're immune. Your tongue's been through divine fire or something. It tastes fine, she repeated, completely unbothered. I slumped back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I'm going to die, not in training, not from mana overload. I'm going to die from breakfast. I stared at the plate like it was a coiled beast waiting to strike. My body still hadn't recovered from the first bite, but the clock on the wall told me what my stomach didn't want to hear. We're late, I muttered, grabbing my fork again. I'm eating this, but from now on, I'm cooking. Belle didn't respond, just gave a small nod, serene as ever, as if she hadn't just weaponized breakfast. I forced down 3 mouthfuls that tasted like salted regret. washed it all down with half a pitcher of water, and stood up. Right? Let's go before my body decides to mutiny. We left Belle's quarters in silence, our footsteps echoing down the narrow corridor. The Ethereum felt different in the morning, still vast and silent, but heavier somehow. At the base of the tower, massive silver doors groaned open, revealing the world beyond. The light hit hard and cold, spilling across the marble courtyard that stretched endlessly outward. I could see the faint shimmer of the Colosseum far in the distance, an enormous ring of white stone cutting through the skyline. I adjusted my collar, squinting at it. That's a long walk. Belle said nothing at first. She just turned slightly toward me, her blindfold catching the sun, and without warning, grabbed my arm. Die, she said. The world snapped. It wasn't pain, exactly, more like a sudden tearing of space itself. My body felt weightless. My lungs forgot how to breathe, and for an instant, everything went still. Then reality slammed back into place. Wind, stone, the low, resonant hum of mana. We stood in front of the Colosseum gates. I stumbled back a step, blinking hard. What did you just do? I killed the distance, Belle said simply, letting go of my arm as if she hadn't just defied every law of physics known to man. Temporarily. You what? The Ethereum and the Colosseum are far apart. It was inconvenient. She tilted her head faintly. So I removed the inconvenience. You heard her, Bastard said dryly. She killed the distance. Totally normal. Perfectly sane behavior. I'm sure nothing about that should terrify you. I exhaled slowly, trying to collect the pieces of my soul that were still lagging behind somewhere halfway across. The city. You could have warned me first. I did, she said. I told you to die. You didn't say anything. Then I will try next time. Assuming there is a next time, Bastard added. I shot him a glare even though he was in my head and followed Belle through the colossal entrance. The interior of the Colosseum was a cathedral of battle. Rows of seats climbed toward the sky, and beneath them stretched an arena so vast it could have swallowed a battlefield whole. The air thrummed with mana, thick enough to taste. Belle led me to a smaller gate near the far side, a door that opened into her personal training chamber. The hall, an endless expanse of black and white, no banners, no decorations, nothing to soften the void, just polished white stone walls veined with onyx streaks, and a floor so reflective it felt like I was walking on the surface of still water. Belle stepped into the center and turned toward me. We'll begin with a hand-to-hand spar. Warm up only, no mana. Before I could argue, she moved. Her first strike came without sound, just a blur of motion and pressure. I barely caught it, twisting aside as her palm sliced through the air where my face had been a second ago. Her next attack came immediately after, low and fast. I blocked with my forearm and felt the shock rattle through my bones. Okay, I hissed, so that's how it's gonna be. I went for a counter, aiming a jab toward her midsection. She deflected effortlessly, shifting her weight just enough to throw me off balance. Her hand brushed my shoulder, and in one fluid motion, she used the contact to pivot and send a kick grazing past my chin. I staggered back, breath short, that almost hit my divine face. Belle's tone didn't change. Then guard your face. We clashed again. Punches, kicks, feints. Her movements were economical, sharp, and precise. Not a single wasted motion. Every strike carried intent. Every dodge looked effortless. And then, mid-swing, she said it. Magical punch. I blinked. What? She didn't punch, she kicked. Her boot slammed into my stomach with a sound like thunder. Air exploded from my lungs as I doubled over and hit the ground hard. I gasped, eyes watering. That was a kick. Yes, she said calmly, straightening. That's what makes it magical. I groaned, clutching my ribs. You need serious help, woman. Belle dusted off her hands like she'd just finished rearranging furniture, instead of rearranging my internal organs. This should be a good enough warm-up, she said flatly. Go change. You'll overheat if you keep those on. I groaned from the floor. You mean the tracksuit you told me to wear? The less skin-covered. She continued as if I hadn't spoken. The more mana your body can absorb. Changing rooms in the corner. Fantastic, I muttered, dragging myself upright, beaten half to death. And now I have to strip for better air circulation. Romantic, Bastard said, his tone dripping with mock sincerity. Truly the training arc of legends. I stumbled toward the door she'd pointed at. The room was small, tiled in the same white and black pattern as the hall, with a single mirror hanging on the wall. I leaned against the sink, exhaling. My reflection stared back, and for a second, I barely recognized the guy in the mirror. Short black hair, still a little messy from the fight. framed a face that looked like it belonged on a wanted poster and a magazine cover at the same time. My jaw was sharp, skin pale, and my eyes, those damn golden eyes, gleamed faintly under the light, like they'd stolen a spark from the sun. Devastatingly handsome, uncomfortably so. The kind of face that made you look twice and then question your life choices. I smirked faintly. At least one of us looks competent. I muttered to my reflection. You're talking to a mirror, Bastard said dryly, and it's still winning the argument. I rolled my eyes, pulling off the training suit and tossing it aside. Yeah, laugh it up. But as I changed into the thinner training clothes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the next part of training was going to make the magical punch look merciful. And judging by the faint hum of mana pulsing through the air outside, Belle was already waiting. When I stepped back into the hall, Belle was standing exactly where I'd left her. Only, she'd changed. Her dark hair, black with faint streaks of red running through it, was pulled into a loose ponytail that left a few strands framing her face. The combat jacket was gone, replaced by a black sports bra and compression shorts that fit her like a second skin. For a second, my brain short-circuited. Okay, nope, don't. I wasn't sure if it was the mana pressure or her presence, but my heart was hammering like I'd just sprinted a mile. She looked. I caught myself, shaking my head hard. Yeah, no. Definitely illegal to think that. Age isn't just a number, not this time. Illegal but understandable. Bastard murmured in my head, objectively speaking. Shut up, I hissed under my breath. Belle blinked, tilting her head. HM. Her voice was casual, light like she hadn't just turned the training hall into a black and red heart attack simulator. Nothing, I said quickly, just warming up my vocal cords. Oh, she nodded, completely unbothered. Good idea. Of course, she didn't get it. Belle Ardent, Reaper of Humanity, 25 years old and somehow the most terrifyingly oblivious person alive. Anyway, she said after a beat, clapping her hands once like a teacher calling the class to order. Sit down. I blinked. What? Floor, she said, pointing without looking, back straight. There was no menace in her tone, just that breezy, matter-of-fact certainty that somehow carried more authority than a battlefield commander. Right, floor, sitting, my favorite position, I muttered, lowering myself onto the cool tiles. Belle stepped behind me, her bare feet silent against the stone. Even without seeing her, I could feel her, her warmth brushing against my skin, calm and steady, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Good, she said softly. Now close your eyes. I hesitated. This isn't the part where you hit me again, right? Nope. Okay, because you said that exact word last time and I woke up in a crater. Belle hummed, clearly not denying it. Trust me this time. Those are famously the last words of everyone who dies. She ignored me completely, which honestly was fair. I took a slow breath, feeling the air shift around us. The faint hum of mana grew stronger, washing through the room like invisible wind. All right, Belle said after a moment, her tone soft but oddly formal. Let's start with something basic. You're currently at the Mercury stage of energy absorption. Mercury. I opened one eye, like the metal that poisons people. Like the planet, she corrected absently, though the other comparison isn't entirely wrong. That's comforting. At the Mercury stage, she continued, ignoring me again. Living beings can only absorb the weakest form of energy, mana. It's the most common, most diluted essence in the world, easy to handle, but also easy to waste. Great, I muttered, so I'm basically a cheap sponge. Belle hummed, clearly considering that, more like a leaky one. I groaned, thanks for the encouragement, coach. Next is the Gemini stage, she went on, brushing a loose strand of red-tinted hair behind her ear. When your body and soul synchronize enough to process dual-flow energy, the current between life and intent, it's stronger than mana, but harder to control. People who reach Gemini start shaping their own reality in small ways, bending air, slowing movement, channeling emotion into force. Dual-flow energy, I repeated. Sounds like something you'd order at a cafe. Belle nodded, completely missing the sarcasm. It does sound nice, doesn't it? Of course, she agreed. And the final stage, she said, her voice slightly smug, is the Apollo stage, the point where a being's body becomes capable of absorbing Vespera, the densest and purest energy known. It's not just power, it's creation and destruction woven together, raw existence in motion. Even Bastard's ever-present presence went quiet at that. I blinked, right? And I'm guessing that's a long way off. Belle smiled that small, almost innocent smile that somehow managed to look smug without trying. Maybe for you. I'm at the beginning of the Apollo stage myself. Of course you are, I said flatly. Wouldn't want my teacher to be normal or anything. Her expression brightened like I'd just complimented her. Thank you, I sighed. That wasn't you know what, never mind. Belle raised a finger like she just remembered something important. Oh right, you probably don't know what these energies actually do. That seems like a pretty big thing to skip, I said. Details, she replied cheerfully. Watch closely. She stood up and the air in front of her shimmered. Threads of white light twisted together in her palm, weaving themselves into a shape. Within seconds, a blade formed, smooth, translucent, and pure white, its edge humming with faint, steady vibration. This, Belle said, holding it up, is a construct made purely of mana. No element, no affinity, just raw energy given form. She gave it a lazy swing. A line of blinding white light tore across the Colosseum floor. The sound came a heartbeat later, a sharp, clean crack that echoed through the entire hall. When the light faded, a gash ran across the stone, 50 meters long, smooth as glass, deep enough that I could see the earth beneath the arena. I stared. You call that basic? Belle tilted her head, studying her work like a painter checking a brush stroke. A little crooked. Then she whispered, barely loud enough for me to hear, die. The cut sealed shut, no noise, no flash. The ground simply forgot it had ever been broken. I blinked hard. What did you just? She smiled faintly, dismissing the mana blade. Now for comparison. The air shifted again, but this time it wasn't light that gathered, it was darkness. The edges of the room dimmed as black energy spiraled into her hand, dense enough to distort the air around it. When the new blade took shape, it looked wrong, like the space it occupied was borrowed, like it didn't belong here. This is Vespera, she said quietly, the energy of creation's shadow. Before I could respond, she swung. There was no sound, just pressure. The world seemed to skip a frame. Then half the Colosseum erupted. Stone and dust exploded outward, the shockwave slamming into me hard enough to steal my breath. By the time I blinked again, the top half of the arena was gone, sliced open, reduced to floating shards suspended in the air. A mile-long trail of destruction. And then, softly, she said again, die. The destruction reversed. The shards fell upward. The air folded back on itself, and the arena was whole once more. I stared at the unmarred floor, my heart pounding. For a terrifying moment, I thought she'd killed the concept of time itself just to undo her own attack. See, she said brightly, brushing dust off her hands like she'd just cleaned a table. That's the difference between mana and Vespera. I swallowed hard. You know, most teachers would just use an energy screen. Belle blinked. Oh, I don't have one. Yeah, I muttered. That's definitely the issue here. Belle dusted her hands again and moved behind me, unhurried, as if blowing up half the Colosseum had been part of a morning routine. All right, she said, voice level. Next exercise. I didn't even bother pretending to be optimistic. Oh, great. Can't wait to see how this one kills me. Sit still. Her hand came to rest against my back, warm and steady through the thin fabric of my shirt. I'm going to force the mana in your body to move. It'll feel unpleasant. Define unpleasant. Like being covered by ants. Fantastic. You have such a talent for reassurance. Focus, she said simply, and the air hummed. The warmth from her palm deepened, then spread. Threads of energy crawled through my body. Slow at first, then faster, sharper, electric. My skin prickled. My bones vibrated. It wasn't pain, just 1,000 invisible needles digging under my flesh. Now, Belle murmured, look inward. Find the warmth and pull it toward your hands. I gritted my teeth, shutting my eyes. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Somewhere deep inside, I felt it, a flicker, faint and alive, like a coal waiting to breathe. I feel it, I rasped. Good. Guide it forward, gently. I obeyed, dragging that ember through invisible channels, coaxing it into my arm. The warmth surged, then blazed. My hand began to glow faintly, heat gathering in my fingers. I think it's working, I said through clenched teeth. Don't stop, Belle said. Keep the flow steady. But it wasn't steady. The heat spiked, the ember roared to life, expanding far too fast, like a dam bursting inside my veins. Belle, I said, voice tight, something's wrong. The world went white. Pain detonated. A sound like thunder ripped through the air. I screamed. My vision swam. I was on the floor, clutching what was left of my arm. A bloody, ruined stump below the wrist. Steam hissed from the wound. Blood spattered across the white tile in pulsing bursts. My throat tore with the sound, Fuck my hand. Every breath was fire, every heartbeat another pulse of agony. Belle's shadow moved over me. Her voice was calm, distant. That's unfortunate. She sighed, almost wistful. Honestly, you're so loud. Die. The sound rippled through the air, and reality shuddered. The pain vanished, the smoke froze, blood stopped mid-spill, each droplet hanging in the air like glass beads. Then, in reverse, the world rewound. Flesh and bone rewove themselves, tendons slithering back into place. The red receded, the heat faded, and my hand was whole again. I gasped, shaking, staring at the perfectly intact skin. What did you? My voice came out hoarse, trembling. What did you do? Belle tilted her head, expression unreadable. I killed the time period where your arm exploded. I could barely breathe, my stomach churned. The memory of the pain still echoed through my nerves even though it was gone. My voice cracked. You killed time. She nodded lightly. Yes, my will and affinity for death combined with Vespera allows for this. I just sat there, staring at her. My hand shook. I shook. The phantom pain crawled under my skin, my body remembering what my mind couldn't process. Belle smiled faintly, as if to reassure me. Don't look so scared. You did well for a first attempt. I laughed, a dry, half-hysterical sound. I exploded. Exactly, she said, almost proudly. That means your flow was strong. You just lost control. Well, Bastard murmured in my skull, voice low. Congratulations, sub. You've joined the prestigious one-hand club. I stared at my trembling fingers, the memory of fire still licking under my skin. Belle straightened, dusting off her knees again. I looked up at her, eyes wide. You're joking. Her calm expression didn't falter. No, and this time, try not to explode. I didn't want to try again. My mind still remembered what my body had forgotten. But Belle just stood there, calm, certain, as if blowing me apart was part of the curriculum. Focus, she said. This time, guide it, don't let it run wild. I swallowed hard, forcing my hands to stop shaking. The phantom pain still lingered, a memory stitched into my bones. Right, I muttered. No explosions. Great plan. Belle placed her palm lightly against my back again. The warmth spread slowly this time, not as sharp as before. The air around us vibrated with faint static. Find the spark, she said quietly. Breathe with it, then pull. I closed my eyes and reached inward. It came easier now, like my body remembered the path even if it hated the destination. The warmth stirred inside me. Small but alive, I coaxed it upward, into my arm, through my wrist, into my hand. Light gathered above my palm, faint at first, then growing until it glowed like a small, trembling sun. It wasn't stable. The edges shimmered, bending and collapsing in on themselves, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. But it was there, real. My breath caught. I did it. Belle smiled faintly. Good. Now make it yours. Impose your will on it. Change that mana into your own affinity. I stared at the wavering sphere floating above my palm. It pulsed like a living thing, unstable, trembling, refusing to stay in one shape for more than a heartbeat. Affinity, huh? I muttered, almost to myself. Belle didn't know what mine were. I hadn't told her, not yet. Death, life, soul flames. I could have started with life. It would have been safer, or soul flames, that one always felt. Strange, but no, there was only one that mattered right now. The image of Belle saying a single word at killing time, space, and reality itself. That wasn't just power, it was artistry. I wanted that. I wanted mine to look like that. I grinned faintly. All right, let's see how death feels. I focused on the orb. In my mind, I stripped the light away from it, piece by piece. I imagined the warmth draining, color fading, until only emptiness remained. The white glow dimmed, the air around me grew heavier, colder. A faint hum, low and uneven, began to ripple through the floor. Sebastian. Belle's voice softened, uncertain. What are you doing? I didn't answer. My heartbeat filled my ears, steady at first then slowing, skipping, as if it too feared what I was touching. The sphere darkened to gray, then to something deeper like light dying. Shadows threaded through it, twisting like veins. It chill crawled up my arm, biting through skin and bone. The floor beneath me frosted over in spiderweb cracks. My breath came out white. Sebastian, Belle said again, sharper this time. Stop, let it go, now. I can handle it, I said through clenched teeth. But I couldn't. The orb pulsed, once, and the cold turned to pain. It wasn't a clean burn. It was rot, gnawing, unraveling me from the inside out. Sebastian. Too late. The black sphere convulsed and collapsed inward, detonating with a dull, gut-wrenching whomp. My vision flashed white, the sound vanished. My entire arm felt like it had been hollowed out and filled with knives. The world tilted, the floor rushing up to meet me. I dimly heard Belle moving, fast, the scrape of her boots, the sharp intake of breath. Then her voice, clear and low, cutting through the ringing in my head. Die. The pain vanished. Just like that, the air rippled, and the agony, the frost, the burning cold, all of it rewound and disappeared, like it had never happened. But I didn't have time to marvel at it. The world had already gone dark at the edges. My last sight was Belle kneeling beside me, her eyes unreadable, the faint shimmer of death Vespera still dancing between her fingers. Then everything faded. Belle ardent. Silence fell over the training room like a wet blanket. The air had stilled and fragments of white mana drifted through the training room, like dust caught in light, fading slowly into nothing. Belle let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hand was still half raised, faint traces of Vespera lingering around her fingertips. The words she'd spoken still resonated faintly in her bones, like an echo that refused to fade. Time had obeyed her, as it always did. The wound, the blood, the ruined flesh, it had all unraveled, rewritten, erased. Sebastian lay on the cold marble floor, whole again, but motionless. She lowered herself beside him, the weight of what had just happened settling in. His chest rose and fell unevenly. Sweat slicked his temples. His fingers twitched occasionally, as if he were still trying to hold that last fragment of mana. Belle rested her hand on the ground beside him, feeling for what was left in the air. Mana always left residue, an aftertaste, a signature. This one was unmistakable. Cold, heavy, still, her brow furrowed. That wasn't what I expected, she whispered to herself. That was. The word formed in her mind before she said it aloud. Death. She closed her eyes, remembering the moment it bloomed inside him. The way the air had thickened, the sudden drop in temperature, the oppressive pressure that made people's skin crawl. It hadn't been raw destruction, it was absence, a hollowing force that devoured what it touched. Belle's fingers brushed lightly against his forearm. She could still feel the faint hum beneath his skin, like something sleeping restlessly inside him. Not gone, just dormant. For the first time in a long while, genuine unease threaded through her voice. She wasn't airheaded now. None of the usual teasing and lazy indifference she often wore like armor. Just quiet, thoughtful focus. She flexed her fingers absently. A faint ache pulsed along her wrist, a whisper of strain beneath the skin. After killing time so many times in such a short span, the fatigue was finally catching up to her. Nothing serious, just a slight heaviness behind her eyes. A reminder that even her power demanded a price. Her mind drifted, inevitably, to her brother. It made sense now. Her brother's sudden insistence that she take this boy as a student. His cryptic tone when she'd asked why him. The way he'd smiled, just a little too knowingly. But now, Belle sat back slowly, eyes narrowing. A small, humorless laugh slipped from her lips. Belle's gaze softened slightly as she looked at Sebastian again. He looked young when he wasn't bragging about his face, peaceful, even. His hair clung damply to his forehead, his breath still shallow but steady. She reached out and brushed his bangs aside, studying his face for a moment. You're reckless, she murmured, arrogant, stubborn, and absolutely hopeless at listening. Her fingers hovered just above his skin, where faint traces of dark mana still pulsed, dim and deep. But you did it, didn't you? You actually turned pure mana into death without dying. Belle smiled faintly, a small curve of admiration breaking through her worry. You really are something else. For a long moment, she just sat there beside him, the hum of mana fading into the distance. The training hall was quiet again. Only the slow rhythm of his breathing and the soft flicker of light from the shattered lamps above. Her voice broke the silence, low but carrying a quiet warmth. You're honestly so stupid, she said with a sigh, the corner of her mouth lifting. But her eyes stayed on him, and she didn't move away. Sebastian Necros. The morning sunlight spilled through the curtains, warm and golden. I blinked against it, feeling the soft weight of the blanket around me, the faint scent of bread and honey drifting up from the kitchen. Liana must have been baking again. I sat up, stretching. Another quiet day in the Liviana estate. It wasn't large, nothing like the marble palaces of the High Lords, but the ivy-covered walls and the garden overlooking the valley made it feel alive. Home. Still pretending you're asleep. Her voice carried from the doorway, teasing as always. I turned and grinned. I was trying to see if breakfast in bed still works if I don't move. She rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. You'd starve before I fell for that again. You say that, I said. But here you are with a tray. Habit. She set it down beside me, fresh bread, jam, and tea that smelled faintly of mint. We ate together, talking about nothing in particular. The garden, the weather, the visiting merchants. Every word came easy, every silence warm. By afternoon, I was in the courtyard, repairing one of the wooden fences while she sat under the oak tree, sketching. The wind carried her laughter as she teased me about my uneven handiwork. Peaceful, too peaceful, maybe. That thought passed through me like a whisper, fleeting, unwelcome. I brushed it off and kept working. But then, as the sun dipped lower, I noticed the servants whispering to one another near the gate. One of them looked pale. When I asked what was wrong, she only shook her head and hurried off. By dinner, the tension lingered. The house was quieter than usual. We sat across from each other, lamplight flickering over the table. The stew was oversalted again. She teased me for it, and I tried to smile back, but the unease in my chest wouldn't fade. Then a sound, faint but wrong. Metal striking metal, somewhere outside. Liana glanced toward the window. What was that? Probably nothing, I said automatically, but I was already standing. Another sound followed, a shout, then two, then dozens. The doors shook. Stay here, I said, already moving. I'll go see. The wall nearest the hall shattered inward, a roaring explosion of fire and smoke. The shockwave knocked me off my feet, dishes clattering across the floor. Liana screamed. Flames licked across the curtains. Figures poured through the broken entry, armored men. Blades drawn, faces hidden behind steel. Get behind me. I grabbed the dagger from my belt. My hands trembled, but I stood between them and her anyway. One man rushed forward. I met him halfway, slamming the blade into the gap beneath his arm. He fell. Another took his place. I cut, dodged, barely keeping them from reaching her. Then pain, white-hot and sharp, as a sword grazed my side. I staggered. Liana, run. She didn't. She was reaching for me when the spear came through the smoke, straight into her chest. Time slowed. Her eyes went wide, confusion flickering there before fading into shock. Blood spilled across her dress as she collapsed into my arms. Liana, no, please, stay with me. I pressed my hands against the wound, but it was too deep, too much. Her lips moved. I leaned closer. You, always, put too much salt. Her voice broke apart into silence. Something in me cracked. I screamed her name, over and over, as if the sound could pull her back. The men surrounded me. I didn't care. I lunged at them, cut one, then another, until a sword slid cleanly through my back. The world tilted. My strength left me all at once. I fell beside her, blood pooling beneath us both. The ceiling burned, the air choked. I reached for her one last time. My fingers brushed hers, still warm. Then everything went dark. I gasped awake, choking on air that wasn't smoke. The room was cold, quiet. My heart hammered. My hands were whole. No blood, no fire, no wife. But her name lingered on my tongue. Liana. And for a moment, I didn't know who I was. Then the name came unbidden, echoing in my mind like an old scar reopening. Sebastian.